Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Glad to be with you after a beautiful weekend in Salt Lake City. Beautiful weather-wise, devoid of the necessary sports load for me. There were some fights on Saturday night. Interesting outcomes there. Obviously, the Utah Mammoth and the Jazz in action. But the dearth of football is something that I am not comfortable with, and I'm going to have to get comfortable with, because after this weekend's Super Bowl, we head into that kind of uncomfortable, itchy sort of hiatus where you can hope for some spring ball announcements and practices. My fingers are crossed that Morgan Scalley will allow us a little bit more access this coming spring to things like, well, anything. But we'll see. Looking forward to the Super Bowl, but also not looking forward to a true football off season. We're going to talk about some hockey today. We're going to talk a little hoops today. We're going to talk about a little Utah football. Rojo, yes, that Rojo is going to join us at 12:30. Try to get him on at noon. We're going to have him join us at 12:30, so we'll do the Daily Dump at noon and Rojo at 12:30, and then Tom Callahan to talk a little Utah Mammoth at 1 o'clock. There's some mock drafts out that I want to cover on the show today. A couple of Utes projected as first-round NFL draft picks, as you know, but we have talked about it many times, and it's worth touching on again. Fit is a massively important thing, and going to the right place to sustain success in your career, as we watched it play out several times, it's massively important. So I'm not loving the projections for at least one of these former Utes, but we'll get there. Our show today and every day is brought to you by our friends at Big Willie's, 1717 South Main. We're coming up on the drawing for, we're going to do the drawing actually here on air. The game is in 2 days. Detroit Red Wings at Utah Mammoth will pull a name out of the, I think it's a fishbowl, or the Utah Mammoth. So if you can get down there today to Big Willie's and say that you heard about the place on the Sean O'Connell Show, they'll probably still be willing to put your name into the drawing. Drink specials every single day, and I do not imbibe myself, but I can appreciate the fact that we're talking about a sports bar here that is not just marking up their liquors and marking up their drinks as aggressively as they can. They're still keeping it affordable. They want it to be a wallet-friendly experience for you, so that you don't stop by Big Willie's one time, but that you keep coming back and you make it kind of your home for sports watching. They're going to have a massive, massive, massive event this coming Sunday for the Super Bowl, and it's a great place to watch it. Delicious food, craft food menu. Tell them OC sent you. So, Utah Mammoth, Dallas Stars in action on, what was this, Friday night, Saturday night? At the Delta Center. And I saw one of the things that is potentially most frustrating for fans, and it doesn't matter what sport we're talking about, where you have a team that is totally capable, competitive, hardcore, chemistry, all the good stuff. But you dig yourself a hole. Self-inflicted wounds. For me, begs the question, and I put it out on Twitter today, at Real OC Sports. You can also answer it at 877-353-0700. The most frustrating, aggravating, upsetting, self-inflicted wound that your team finds itself guilty of. And I know every single team does this, is guilty of all of the options I put, and I could have added another, but I just want to know, of the self-inflicted wounds that you have observed or complained about with your team, which one is most aggravating? Penalties, slow starts, turnovers. And if you're a huge Utah Mammoth fan, slow starts is going to be rising up the ranks for you, even if it's not one that you traditionally over-index toward. The Utah Mammoth would be 7, 8, 10 games better, 7, 8, 10 points better, if they just stopped giving up early goals. If they were a better first-period team, this Utah Mammoth squad would have solved a problem this weekend against the Dallas Stars. That is one of the best teams in the NHL on home ice, because down the stretch, I think you can make an argument that the Mammoth outplayed the Stars, but you had already dug yourself a hole by giving up a goal 30 seconds into the game. And obviously it's not isolated to hockey, isolated to Utah Mammoth hockey. We see this all the time where you come out of the tunnel sleepy right after the opening tip, right after the puck drops, opening kickoff, whatever. You're just not ready to go. And to me, I've always blamed it on coaching. It's one of the few things that I will blame on coaching in sports. I think it's because I was an athlete who was raised in a house where you didn't get coddled to explain away your mistakes if they happened. And my parents weren't like the biggest sports people, so they weren't going to be analyzing the play call, or they weren't going to be analyzing the performance of the coach. It was kind of like, hey, well, should have been ready to go. Slow starts are one of the few things that I blame more on coaching than I do on players, because I believe as a coach, you have to have it figured out, and every team's going to be a little bit different. You could probably be a little bit more hands-off if you've got a bunch of veteran leadership in a dressing room or a locker room. You probably have some teams where there's a lot of vocal, rah-rah, get you fired up guys, and maybe that's necessary. Maybe your group, it's not necessary at all. As a coach, I think it's your job to figure that out. I think it's one of the jobs of a coaching staff to assess the needs of the team and meet the team where they are. And slow starts, in my opinion, have always been an evidence of a disconnect in that particular front. Why'd they come out slow? Why'd they come out sluggish? Why'd they come out sloppy? Well, maybe you're warming them up too hard, or maybe you're not warming them up hard enough, or maybe you're like, who's the guy Gannon, Rich Gannon's kid? What's his first name? That just got fired by the Cardinals. Steve Gannon, John Gannon.
Man, I want to say
Gannon. I'm just going to say George Gannon.
I want to say Terry Gannon, but that's the basketball announcer. Anyway, but Gannon was with the Eagles before and Cardinals head coach. How irrelevant are the Cardinals that we can't even remember who just got fired by them? Jeez.
Jonathan Gannon. Like, have you seen the post-firing, of course, have you seen the viral videos of John Gannon trying to fire up his team? It is the funniest thing. It's like something out of The Office. It's like if you took Toby Flinderson from The Office and put him in charge of pump-up speeches before a game. Or he's doing a film session. You just go find him.
Or like
hey, what are you here for? What are we doing? It's like it is the most awkward, cringy. Is this guy trying to motivate people, or is this some sort of kind of like really, really advanced humor that none of us get? Like, it's totally understated, and that's what we're supposed to be laughing at. It's just painful to watch that guy speak. Maybe he thought that was the right thing for that particular group, and maybe everyone in the room except for him was just like, dude, this is why we come out of the tunnel and are just like, do we really have to play this game? But slow starts drive me insane. The penalty thing.
New poll question idea, OC. Better motivational, better pep talk, pregame pep talk Jonathan Gannon, any of them, or Michael Scott leadership talk on Boost Cruise episode.
There's a viral video of a Walmart manager singing a K-pop song, and he's not singing it, he's lip-syncing a K-pop song to, like, the gathered shift of people.
And he's terrible, no doubt.
Well, he's like a 50-year-old man lip-syncing a K-pop song from that Demon Hunters on Netflix. At first I thought it was AI, and then I thought it was like, oh, this guy must have been doing something else, and they dubbed the song over it. And then I actually watched it, and I was like, nope, he's actually doing this.
It's real.
And it doesn't seem like it's parody. Ugh. Maybe there are people out there in the coaching world that are that bad from a motivation standpoint. In that case, slow starts are going to be a problem for you all the time. The self-inflicted wounds of a team like the Utah Mammoth, who are talented, they're in this Goldilocks zone of you can beat anybody in the NHL right now, okay? You just went on the second night of a back-to-back. You went to Sunrise, Florida, and you beat the Florida Panthers, the defending Stanley Cup champions. Now, they're not the best team in the league right now, but you beat them, right? So you've got all these feathers stuffed into your cap of franchises you had not previously beaten. Now you got wins against them. And now you got a matchup against the Dallas Stars team that has been they've been a staple presence in the Western Conference playoffs. And even in the Western Conference finals, they've made multiple appearances. And you can play with them. I was there at the game. You're as good as they are. But you dug yourself a hole early in this game. There was a late chance. Peterka right in front of the net. Perfect pass. And you just didn't convert that one. Should have been a game-tying third-period goal. And then maybe you have to, rally a little bit for overtime. But we've seen what this Utah Mammoth squad looks like in overtime. Keller, Gunther, guarantee you're going to get the overtime win there. That chance with a minute 15 or so left, so painfully close. But you don't desperately need it. You're not dependent on it if you haven't dug yourself a hole. Self-inflicted wounds in team sports are one of the most aggravating things in the fan experience. So tell me which one is worst for you. At Real OC Sports, 877-353-0700. Peace, love, and Utah on Twitter. Offensive holding, yes. I see you. You are heard. I appreciate exactly the sentiment you are expressing with that GIF. And it is a nightmare. Big play, chunk play, maybe scoring play, and then you see laundry on the field, and you're like, no, not down, not back at the line of scrimmage, no. So which self-inflicted wound bothers you most as a sports fan? Another question, it is Groundhog Day. Are you aware of this? I was under the impression Groundhog Day was a federal holiday. I don't know why we're working today, James.
Yeah, come on now. We're not in Punxsutawney trying to. We don't need to be covering Groundhog Day today. We can take the day off. But hey, we're just that kind of those kind of workhorses, those kind of grinders on a Groundhog Day.
By the way, for people who are interested in the very strange pagan ritual of listening to a groundhog's shadows or not, about whether or not they'll be winter.
You're anti-Groundhog Day.
6 more weeks of winter, which for us would be just 6 weeks of winter.
That
if we get 6 more weeks of winter, that will be a 6 weeks total.
Honestly, that I would be fine with, because as much as I am more of a warm weather guy, OC, growing up in St. George, that's just what I grew up used to, over 300 days of sunshine a year where I'm from. We need the winter here. We need it up here where it typically happens. So I'm fine with it if we just get 6 weeks of winter.
I would just like 1 week of winter with painfully aggressive snowstorms.
We need the water, man.
And then we're done. right? By the way,
it was nice to have this
James,
the one storm.
James, you probably didn't notice this about yourself, but I'm sure we need the water. I'm sure that's a sentence that never came out of your mouth before you became a dad. I bet that you never said that even one time. Now, you might have thought it, you might have known it, but it's when you become a dad that you start verbalizing. You walk out and you're kind of scratching the little roll, and you're like, man, we need the water. I'll tell you what. A little drizzle comes down. Hey,
did I just walk into those Progressive commercials? Just turn into your
honestly,
parents?
Yes.
Oh man,
it's something you start paying attention to.
I need Dr. What's His Face,
and you're gonna start reading World War II history books and smoking meats. Those are your hobbies as an old dad.
Books about boats.
End of the day, I bring up Groundhog Day because it's one of the most rewatchable comedy films of all time, in my opinion. And I'm not even the biggest Bill Murray fan out there. 877-353-0700 at Real OC Sports. The most rewatchable comedy film in your mind is fill in the blank.
You got to read Vegas Utes' reply to your tweet just now. You don't have to read the whole thing. It's a little wordy. But, read the actual submission. This is a deep cut by Vegas Ute.
Vegas Ute says, promise not to snort. A vote from the Film History Department. Philadelphia story from 1940.
You know this one? I don't know this one.
I'm shy about recommending classic movies to modern audiences, but this is a classic that translates. Katharine Hepburn, Cary Grant, and Jimmy Stewart. Find out why your grandparents loved them.
I mean, that's a heck of a cast.
Look, I will cast no aspersion on the recommendation. I will make no judgment because I've never seen it. It might be hilarious. It might be intensely rewatchable. It appears to be a black and white film. Maybe there's a colorized version out there somewhere. Doesn't bother me too much.
I like Cary Grant and Jimmy Stewart. I'd give it a watch.
I do know this about myself. My favorite humor is probably crude humor, which I don't think they were throwing a lot of out there in 1940.
You don't think Philadelphia's story has a lot of crude humor? Maybe some sneaky crude humor. Maybe ask your grandpa.
Maybe there's jokes about someone showing their ankles.
Yeah,
I have no idea.
Ask your grandpa what some of the crude slang was, so you can keep an eye out for it.
Yeah, who knows? But by the way, that's a me problem. Okay,
absolutely.
That's a me problem, people. I'm not endorsing crude humor. This is a family show, but it's the stuff that makes me laugh the most. So, like Wes on Twitter saying Old School is the most rewatchable comedy film. Yeah.
You're down with that.
Old School is way up there for me.
I mean, Blue's my boy. So.
And I'm a huge Will Ferrell fan. But in any case, we'll keep those going throughout the day. We'll ask Rojo when he joins us. We'll ask Tom Callahan when he joins us. The most rewatchable comedy films in honor of Groundhog Day. The actual Groundhog Day is today, and Punxsutawney Phil did see his shadow, which denotes 6 more weeks of winter, which we probably need here in Salt Lake City. The Bill Murray comedy Groundhog Day is quite rewatchable.
Yeah, it's really good.
It's a funny one.
Yeah.
Ned Ryerson.
Watch out for that last step. It's a doozy.
In any case, we'll keep that up throughout the show today.
Okay, James, I have to say something else out loud, and hopefully this isn't something that our guy Tom Callahan isn't annoyed with, because he happens to have the same name as someone in a very rewatchable comedy.
Okay.
But I'm hoping that he says Tommy Boy is his rewatchable comedy.
That's not even on my list. Not
really?
Even close. I feel like I missed the love of some of those Chris Farley. I love Chris Farley on SNL. I don't love Chris Farley's movies for some reason. And maybe it's because I now harbor resentment for David Spade because he's my wife's celebrity crush.
Oh,
which is so hard to explain and terrible. Just horrific to even have to acknowledge on air. But here we are. A response to my other question, the much more relevant sports question. about what self-inflicted wounds aggravate you the most as a sports fan. And again, this is inspired by the Utah Mammoth digging themselves a first-period hole against the Dallas Stars so that even when they, midpoint of the game on, outplayed Dallas, they were only able to claw back a couple of goals, and they ended up losing that one 3-2 in what is, if you win that game, that's a double win because of the divisional opponent type situation, and obviously you're chasing Dallas. So if you can keep them from getting points, massive for you. It's not as crucial as keeping the teams beneath you in the wild card race at bay, I will admit that, but it's something that you would like to see this Utah Mammoth squad against a perennial contender in the West and a team that is just I shouldn't say just ahead, placement-wise they are just ahead of you in the standings in your division, but they're 13 points ahead of you because Colorado now with 81 points, Minnesota with 74, Dallas with 73, and fourth in the Central Division are your Utah Mammoth with 60 points. Canucks coming in tonight, and you have to destroy the Vancouver Canucks. They are right now the worst team in the West. You cannot fall asleep at the wheel. You cannot afford a slow start. You cannot create any self-inflicted wounds as a franchise. You have got to get over on this team in order to keep climbing the standings and stay where you need to stay in the wild card and in the conference race. Colorado at the top, Minnesota and Dallas not only at the top of your division, but of the Western Conference. And then it's Vegas, Edmonton, Seattle, Anaheim, L.A., and the Utah Mammoth tied with L.A. right now at 60 points, but flirting with that line. The annoying thing here with Utah is your differential, right? Your goal differential statistic. This Mammoth team offensively has done a remarkable job this year. They are plus 19. Having lost 2 in a row now. You're plus 19, which is better than the Vegas Golden Knights, who are ahead of you in the standings, the Edmonton Oilers, who are ahead of you in the standings, and way ahead of Seattle, Anaheim, and LA, who are all ahead of you in the standings. They're all at negative goal differential on the season. The Utah Mammoth are plus 19. That's good enough for fourth in the West. So you're fourth in goal differential, but you're, what is that? We decided eighth in the standings. Ninth in the standings. Explain that to me. Well, I can explain it. Special teams errors, slow starts, self-inflicted wounds, and when I say special teams errors, one of the biggest special teams errors you can make in hockey is creating a scenario where you need your special teams to rise to the occasion and you need your penalty kill to be excellent because you're taking too many penalties. So that actually, the Mammoth right now are checking 2 boxes of the 3 in my worst possible self-inflicted wound scenario, where you've got slow starts, a problem, penalties, a problem, and we'd have to get, well, we'll ask Tom Callahan about it, how big of a problem the turnovers are for this Utah Mammoth squad right now when you get into the advanced analytics. Are they possessing the puck the way that they need to in order to keep all of this stuff at bay? The poll question is up. The non-poll question is also up. So tell me the self-inflicted wound that bothers you. Tell me the most rewatchable comedy. Derek on the text line said missed free throws are the most annoying self-inflicted wound for him. And the most rewatchable comedy is Anchorman, which is way, way up there for me.
Yeah, that's a great text on both fronts, because missed free throws from obviously from basketball standpoint, that probably is it's that, and like the I'm not paying enough attention kind of turnovers, like, oh, I just accidentally threw that in the 4th row, or like I threw it right to the teammate in a really tight moment in the playoffs, but it hit off their hands and went out of bounds. Like those kind of things are just terrible. The mental mistake.
Okay, so I could probably make you a list for basketball only here. So those types of boneheaded turnovers, absolutely yes. Missed free throws, absolutely yes. And maybe the one that has plagued basketball more in recent years than ever before, but the inexplicable, disgusting hero ball possessions where guys just decide that they're, instead of being on an NBA floor with 4 other people in the lineup with them who are all professional basketball players, they decide that they are playing on like a 11th Avenue Park hoop, or they're at the 17th Ward gym or whatever, and they're just like, it's me. This is my moment. This is my time to shine. Palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy, whatever, and they just get crazy and go mom spaghetti, and they vomit all over themselves with that possession. That it is one of the most frustrating, disgusting, aggravating things that you're going to see. And I think it's one of the reasons why, at least from a novice perspective, hockey is becoming more and more watchable and basketball is becoming less and less watchable for a lot of people, because I mean, and I'll fully acknowledge it might be because of the lack of understanding with hockey, but you just don't see it as much where a guy picks up the puck at like the blue line and is just like, it's all me. I'm not gonna pass. I'm not gonna look to anyone else. It's me versus the 5 guys on the other side, and I'm just gonna drive this thing home and put up the worst shot anyone can imagine. And the only thing that could make it even worse, James, is when you do it with like 20 seconds left on the shot clock.
Or like, end of the game, shot clock's off. It's like 15, 20 seconds left, and it's like we didn't design a play. We just gave it to our best player, and it's ISO ball until he decides to shoot it with a few seconds left, whether he's open or not. Like it. Over dribbling is one of the biggest problems with the game today.
Crazy negligence, by the way. If that's now, by all means, draw up the play to get your best player the shot and to get your best player the possession. But if your whole play is like Anthony Edwards just make something happen,
which, listen, they're drawing something up. I'm being tongue in cheek. They're drawing something up. But that's what it looks like. It looks like what you and me, who are not paid millions of dollars to coach basketball, say all the time. Like in the joke in Michael Jordan's era was all Phil Jackson ever did was say, give the ball to Michael. Like, yes, that's what we say. Give it to Donovan Mitchell when he was here. Give it to Karl Malone, right? And then everybody else get out of the way. But like, people who are actually paid millions of dollars to come up with good ways to get your guys open and good ways to get good shots, like, you should actually be more organized than that. Hot take.
92-31, how about this? Just checking all the boxes at 877-353-0700 with this text message. Most painful or aggravating self-inflicted wounds. He says, in basketball, missed free throws and not rebounding. In football, procedure penalties and holding or illegal man downfield. Oh, it feels like that is very specific to this past season. Why did you bring that up? That hurt me right there. And then answered the movie question. Most rewatchable comedy movie. In honor of Groundhog Day, Hangover, Anchorman, 21 Jump Street. All excellent.
All good entries there. By the way, illegal man downfield's just sizeism, isn't it? Is there actually like I'm a bit of tell me
there are rules, James.
Oh, I know that. Tell me the advantage as someone who has watched football his whole life. I'm not a football novice, but I am in the sense of like I'm not understanding everything I'm seeing when I'm watching it. Tell me, what distinct advantage do you get from a Spencer Fano being downfield when he shouldn't be? Sorry.
You brought up the very specific case from the Texas Tech game.
Like, because I'm not sure it's usually way off the ball.
Okay.
So
All right?
anyway,
I'm glad you're
why
asking this
is it
question.
against the rules?
I'll tell you why. What it was from? Was it from the national championship game where we got that viral clip from the play where the 6'8", 340-pound Miami offensive tackle was out there with a full head of steam blocking an Indiana corner?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
You remember this play that I'm talking about?
I do remember that. Now that you say that.
That's the answer to your question. There is a distinct advantage to having blockers, like the physical mismatch of if you can take a situation, right? And so just bear with me here. Instead of your screen pass being a lateral manufactured blocking scenario, all right? Imagine you put your quarterback in a deep shotgun, all right? And you tell whoever, Spencer Fano, Tainoa Tongiai, Jaron Kump, you say, all right, you're going to disengage from the defensive tackles and linebackers, and you're just going to run immediately past the linebackers to the safeties. So it's you three versus the safeties. And we're going to have Dallin Bentley run a little hide pass behind the linebackers, and then it's him with the ball and you three.
And he's got an offensive line
blocking two safeties. Now, a lot harder to pull off than just speaking it into existence, obviously, because if your linebackers are good, even if your D tackles are good, they're going to realize, oh, bleep, they're not touching me. I need to, instead of attacking the quarterback, I need to get back into this passing lane here. They know how to defeat screens. But now we're talking about screens that are 10 yards downfield. You can't let the blockers get that far downfield and create the physical mismatches by design. Now,
that makes sense.
A good lineman that hustles and gets himself downfield in the first place, hopefully the referees know that that's a hustle play and aren't just like, wait, there's no way that guy was able to get down to 15 yards that quickly. Usually when they call illegal man downfield, it is actually an illegal man downfield.
Yeah, and I understand that part's not been confusing for me. I've been able to see, oh yeah, he's downfield when he shouldn't be. It's, I guess, maybe we've gotten so good at enforcing it that you just don't see anything near what you described happening, which is why I'm like, I don't understand what's the problem with him being there, because they're not because it's usually, when we see it now, it's an RPO play and the O-line's in a bad spot because they thought he handed the ball off and he ended up keeping it and throwing it, and they're not. So that's why I've always been scratching my head. I'm like, why don't they just let them do it? But because if they did, they'd be doing stuff like that.
Well, we have Robert Johnson. We got Rojo coming on, and maybe you can ask him, why aren't the offensive linemen just allowed to be downfield? Whatever.
Can't you just shake off a 300-pound center, Rojo? Weren't you a good safety?
I mean, Rojo maybe Rojo would prefer to have to take on blocks from offensive linemen.
Like, I'll just give him a little shimmy, shake, and juke, and then I'll be out in front of him.
There is that, but there are too many videos of the offensive tackle or the pulling guard that gets a corner in their sights, and it's just like, oh no,
yeah.
Oh no, and there's an annihilation. I think that's the easiest way to explain why the illegal man downfield thing is still a rule in football.
Makes perfect sense, and I should have, as you were saying that, I'm like, well, okay, that seems obvious, but I guess, like I said, we've enforced it so well that nothing like that scenario ever really plays out when they throw the flag, it seems like. So
you know what?
It made me question it.
So I also approach that from the blocking perspective. There's also, and you know what, Todd, we'll have to talk with Todd Newcomb. Todd, over on X96.
Yes, our rules analyst.
He's a referee. He's been like a long-time high school referee and is like pretty dedicated to the craft. And
didn't he say even when he and his brothers were playing football growing up, he would be designated as the ref? It's always been the ref.
Which is
shout out to Todd Newcomb.
Sounds like something the other kids are doing to just like let you participate, even though you're not a good player. But whatever. But Todd's the man. We love Todd, and he takes it very, very seriously. And he might be able to tell us more. But there's also just the pure chaos and confusion factor in a coverage scheme. If you have to deal with the 5 offensive linemen also being like, even if they're not allowed to touch anyone and block, now you're like, wait, who's an eligible receiver and who's not? Just like the visual mess of being a safety, linebacker, corner when you've got 10 guys that you're like, oh wait, nope, he's too big, nope, that's the guy right there. Like it would muddy up passing routes in such a way and coverages in such a way that I'm sure the original rules writers of football were just like, you can't have that, man.
No.
That's crazy. That's just too weird.
No.
Well, call whoever invented the football rule book and put it in place in the first.
When they were making the rules, they said the original rules. They said you can't have that many 150-plus pound guys.
That's exactly right. When they wrote that rule, it's like, we can't have guys weighing 185 running out there in the passing routes. No chance.
It's good thing they put it in then before they started becoming 300-pounders.
All right, got to take a break here. The show and the whole opening segment is brought to you every single day by Big Willie's, 1717 South Main. ESPN's latest mock draft is out. I will tell you where they see Spencer Fano going, where they see Caleb Lomu going, and a conspicuous absence in the top 10. It's the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. right, ESPN.com with the mock draft out. I think it's Matt Miller. NFL mock draft out. And obviously, I'm going to be giving you the updates on every single one of these because, well, when you're predicting the top rounds of the upcoming NFL draft, you're going to be talking about a couple of Utes. The top 5, according to Matt Miller, looks like this. The Raiders pick Fernando Mendoza, as a lot of people expect they will. Before I just casually cast that aside and move on from there, are we sure that Fernando Mendoza is the right quarterback to pick at number 1? I am as big a fan as you're going to find of Fernando Mendoza because I always love that underdog story. This kid, his last 4 years are a Disney movie. No, you're not allowed to walk on at the school that is right down the road from your high school and your house. Yeah, I know that your dad was the high school teammate of the head coach at that school, but still, we're not going to let you on. By the way, when they make the movie of this, I want a flashback to Mario Cristobal being like the Biff Tannen high school bully. And that's why he wasn't down with having the Fernando Mendoza walk-on story.
Even if, I mean, that's what makes it based on a true story, not a true story. Even if that's not who Cristobal was, let's make him that way. Let's use a little creative license.
Let's be honest, I bet he was. Okay? I'm going to cast that aspersion on Mario Cristobal. I'll say allegedly to protect myself legally, but allegedly, I'm certain.
Seems like a good time to say the views expressed by Sean O'Connor.
I am allegedly certain that Mario Cristobal was an absolute bully, and that it had some effect on not letting Fernando Mendoza walk on at the University of Miami. In any case,
under puppy dog story, by the way, when it comes to Fernando Mendoza,
this kid is just like, he's too good to be true. He's too effusive. He's too bubbly. He is not the modern day college football player. You don't care how much NIL money he made. Has anyone noticed that? We know how much NIL money every other prominent quarterback is making in college football. We don't have a real good idea about the Heisman Trophy winners because you don't care. Because it's not the part of his story that you're interested in. I'm sure we could find it. I'm sure the Indiana message boards have it all over the place. I'm sure it's like $4.5 million. Some non-insignificant, ridiculous sum. But we know about Dante Moore. We know about Arch Manning. We know what Julian Sayan's ballpark is, and Bryce Underwood. And then the guy who actually won the national championship and the Heisman Trophy, if you can find it, it's the 10th thing that you have to like sort through all the other, like, hey, did you know that Fernando Mendoza saves puppies from trees in his spare time? It's just, we don't do that to him. Now, as you make the transition to the NFL, that perceived innocence, that aw shucks type of thing that I think is so endearing in college football becomes probably a liability at the next level. I don't know that it's going to be viewed as positively. I don't know if you want your starting quarterback to have that Boy Scout look to him and that Boy Scout reputation to him. If it's fine if that's like your tight end, or if your fullback has that, or if an offensive guard has that. Your quarterback is a guy that needs to be universally respected by everyone on your team. Everyone in the locker room has to feel like they can relate to the guy somehow. Everyone in the locker room has to feel like and I'm not saying Fernando Mendoza should change who he is. I'm saying that NFL teams in this process are always looking for a reason not to love you and not to draft you number 1 overall. And if we're talking about the biggest bad boy organization in the NFL, the Las Vegas Raiders, they might use that against you. They might also look at it and say, it hasn't really been working out for us lately trying to be the bad boys, so let's get this Boy Scout kid from the movie Up. That's what Fernando Mendoza, he's like a tall, skinny version of that guy.
That's a good pull. Yeah. Maybe it's like for the Raiders specifically, maybe it could be looked at as like this will be a nice change of pace. The rest of our team can be the Raiders. We can our quarterback leader can be Puppy Dog Man.
They had that with Derek Carr though. And like Carr was like the sort of like overt evangelical, like very, very Christian, which I respect. If those are your views and your beliefs, I don't think you should ever put a filter on it. I think you should. This is America. It's one of the great things about our country. If that's who you are, be that. And I don't think it hurt him as a Raiders quarterback. I don't know if it helped him either. And I don't know if he had been that vocal about everything, you know, whether they would have said, yeah, that's going to be the guy that sets our culture here with the Raiders specifically. So I don't know. The Fernando Mendoza at number one thing, to me, I'm just like, I wonder how that's going to go.
Yeah, my only thought is because Dante Moore's not coming out.
Yeah.
He's staying with Oregon. Arch Manning's staying with Texas. If you're a team that's like, we need to take the best quarterback available at number one overall, like presumably the Raiders, I'm not sure there's another obvious option at quarterback. I mean, who is going to be the next? If you've still got the mock draft pulled up, I don't even know off the top of my head, without having looked at a mock draft yet, who the obvious number two quarterback is.
Well, I think that's part of the problem here for the Raiders. There's not an obvious number two quarterback, because we might see Fernando Mendoza be the only QB taken in the first round of this upcoming draft.
It's a very quarterback light draft. And
So-
I'll say this too about Fernando Mendoza. I think you're right about this. Like, we've had squeaky clean reputation Hall of Fame quarterbacks. Drew Brees comes to mind. Peyton Manning comes to mind. But those guys still had some grit to them. They still had some of that I'm tough guy quarterback substance to them. That, I'll say this, if you listen to Fernando Mendoza talk, if you just go off based on what he looks like, you have not seen him play, you can fall into that. Does this guy really have enough of a football player dog in him? But you watch him play,
Yeah.
and the hits that he took in the, I'm thinking, Big Ten championship game right away against Ohio State. He got knocked out of the game right away, and then came back and was as tough a guy as you'll see on the football field. And then against Miami in the national championship game, they went after him physically, and he just kept getting up. He was like, speaking of Boy Scout squeaky clean reputation, but also tough guy, fictionally. He was like Captain America. I can do this all day.
I have a deep appreciation for this type of like mindset and stuff. My best friend was our high school quarterback. He is the same way. He was like the squeakiest, cleanest, Mormonist guy that you could find, and was a savage competitor. Just quietly. And didn't Fernando Mendoza say that in his Heisman Trophy speech? "You taught me toughness doesn't have to be loud."
Yeah.
He said that about his mom. Like that's, as someone who's a loud guy who likes to think he was pretty tough, it's one of the most admirable traits for me when I see someone who is scary, but they don't have to tell you about it, right? So maybe that's Fernando Mendoza, and maybe everyone in that locker room is going to acknowledge it like in Indiana they did. But it just feels interesting to see how this thing's going to play out. I just wasted 10 minutes of our time talking about this. So we got to take another break. And I promise when we get to the other side, I'm going to tell you where Caleb Lomu and Spencer Fonau are in this draft, and we'll decide whether that's a good or a bad thing. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Post Malone and Jelly Roll are coming to Rice-Eccles Stadium July 28th. Tune into the Drive with Spence Checketts every day this week for your chance to win a pair of tickets. I want those.
Sorry, listeners. OC wants your tickets.
It's fine. I only need 8, so
Okay.
we'll give away 8 to me and then 2 to the listeners.
All right.
Right? Because he's going to have 5 days of 2
Yeah.
2 days. So, yeah. All right, cool. As long as we can all agree on that.
Go ahead
Post
and-
Malone and Jelly Roll, Rice-Eccles Stadium, July 28th. I actually don't know if I'm in town. Dang it. In any case, I promised you we'd talk about this mock draft. Rojo, by the way, Robert Johnson going to join us at 12:30. The Daily Dump coming right around noon today to accommodate one of the Utah football greats. Mock draft from ESPN, and it is only that. It's only a mock draft. I got bogged down at number 1. Number 2, Arvell Reese to the New York Jets from Ohio State. Number 3, Arizona Cardinals would pick Francis Mauigoa, the offensive tackle from Miami. Okay, no, wrong. Tennessee Titans, Reuben Bain Jr. So Miami going back-to-back in this mock draft.
I'm sorry. Is what's the number 3 guy? What's the name again there?
Francis Mauigoa.
Is Francis Mauigoa the Outland Trophy winner?
Did he win the Outland Trophy?
I'm
I don't
sorry.
think he did.
Wrong choice. If the just another wrong choice for the Cardinals at the top of the draft if that happens.
Number 5, the New York Giants select Carnell Tate, wide receiver, Ohio State University.
Man, 2 of these top 5 picks are incredible.
How about this? Jackson Dart, Cam Scadaboo, Malik Neighbors, and Carnell Tate.
Woo. John Harbaugh. Got to be excited about that for his new offense.
All right. Number 6. And look, number 6, yay, wonderful, awesome. Great signing bonus. Perfect way to start your life as a professional. Well, let's be honest, continue your life as a professional athlete. Spencer Fano, offensive tackle, Utah, number 6. The problem is that's a Cleveland Browns pick.
Although, so the Browns don't win. That's the problem with the Browns, right?
Right.
But they have typically been good at the offensive and defensive lines. So that's a good place for you to be a star offensive lineman.
Okay, is it though? Because you're right. They've had really good offensive linemen. They've had solid defensive linemen. They have right now the best defensive line presence in the league. Like Myles Garrett is the best defensive player probably in the league. Joe Thomas was first team All-Pro, Hall of Fame, best tackle in the league for most of his career.
I don't think Joe Thomas played a single playoff game and yet went to the Hall of Fame. Yeah, that's why it's like you don't want to go to the Browns.
And look, when you get to be a pro, the goals are you want to maximize your earnings, right? You want to set yourself and your family up. Spencer's well on his way to that already. Okay? He has more than $1 million already. He has more than $2 million already. Okay? And he's going to get another 35 when he gets drafted in the first round. So you're going to check that box quickly. In your early 20s, you have checked the box of my family, my immediate family is set up.
Generational wealth, potentially.
At some point, when you check that box, and then the next box is maybe like, I want to be named All-Pro or Pro Bowl or whatever. You want to be in an organization where you can check all the boxes. That the team, this is a team sport. You want to win. This guy wants to win championships. He wants to at least compete for them. That's where this sucks for Spencer Fano, because the Cleveland Browns, you just don't believe it. Number 7, they've got Caleb Downs, another Ohio State Buckeye. That's 3 so far in the top 10. Number 8, Jeremiah Love to the New Orleans Saints out of Notre Dame. Number 9, David Bailey, who we became painfully aware of this past season in the Big 12. the Texas Tech edge rusher, going to the Kansas City Chiefs.
Ugh, the Chiefs getting that good a player? That sucks.
All the way down at number 10 is interesting, where you see the first SEC player in the mock.
Oh, I wasn't even thinking about that as you're naming these. Wow.
Isn't that wild? I mean, look,
low.
it's just a mock draft, and so this could go very, very differently on draft day.
And also there's a number of those players that are from southeastern region schools, Miami being one of them. They're just not in the SEC.
It's wild that, I mean, I know that the SEC, if you say, hey guys, everyone's catching up or everyone's passing you by, you haven't been in the championship game for, like, we here in Big 12 country can't mock anybody for that, and I'm not mocking, I'm just acknowledging the SEC. They're starting to hear the footsteps, and they're starting to, you're getting comments out of the SEC. Even people like Nick Saban are starting to get, like, they're making comments rooted in insecurity.
Yeah, coming back to the pack a little bit.
That the dominance that they have enjoyed for years and years and years is escaping them. Now, do I think that the SEC is not going to have a bunch of first-round picks? That's not what I'm saying. But in any other year, if we said there might not be a top 10 pick from an SEC school, you'd be like, yeah, right, dude. But now you're starting to be like, well, okay, yeah, I guess I could see that.
Yeah, you'd say, if you're a betting person and you heard someone say, you want to make a bet that there won't be an SEC player in the top 10 of the NFL draft, all of us would say, I don't care what the odds are, I'm taking that bet. So that it's a good thing we aren't. It's a good thing none of us did take that bet, or maybe some of you did.
And even as you get down into the rest of this first round, the SEC is not the dominant. I mean, you've got two guys, again, all mock draft, couple guys from Clemson. You've got a Toledo safety. You've got USC, Mekhi Lemon, the wide receiver. You've got Jordan Tyson, the wide receiver from Arizona State. By the way, Arizona State's right tackle he had maybe the best Senior Bowl practices of anyone. He could be sneaking into the first round of this NFL draft. And actually, if I'm Caleb Lomu and Spencer Fano, I'm looking at my agent and going, like, are we sure this was the right thing for us to not participate here while this guy's skyrocketing up people's draft boards by bullying around people at the Senior Bowl? Should I be participating in one of these? So, number 27, the San Francisco 49ers have the pick. According to this mock draft, and I so desperately hope this is how it plays out. Number 27, San Francisco 49ers select Caleb Lomu, offensive tackle, Utah. There's a couple of reasons why I love this, and it's not just because it's a Ute going to the San Francisco 49ers, but for Caleb Lomu, you're being drafted by an organization that, look, I think they missed their Super Bowl window, this recent Super Bowl window being open. I think it's slamming shut on them this offseason. And especially when an in-division rival is probably going to win the Super Bowl. I'm not real happy as a San Francisco 49ers fan right now, but if I'm looking at this from a Ute fan lens, a Caleb Lomu fan lens in particular, I'm saying, how great could it be for Caleb Lomu to go understudy for Trent Williams, who has been the best left tackle in the game for the last decade? He's not done yet. Trent Williams, I don't think is going to retire this offseason. He's going to be 38 years old next year, though, and the end is coming, right? If you can go play in Shanahan's offense under Trent Williams, back that guy up, understudy for him, staying at left tackle, is there a better situation? You're still a first-round draft pick. You still get first-round draft pick signing bonus money. You still get that, hey, you're a first-round draft pick, which means we're going to give you, like, basically 5 years of a pass in the NFL, even if you don't show up to a single workout. People are banking on your potential, right? And obviously that won't be the case with Caleb Lomu. But to be a guy who's not thrown to the fire. Spencer Fano, if he's drafted by the Browns, he's a day one starter. They're saying, like, yep, dude, you're learning on the job. And
plug and play.
Do I think he's going to be fine with that? Yes. Are there going to be growing pains? Sure, because you're in the NFL now, right? Like, everybody, at practice, you're going to have to work against Myles Garrett. You're going to go through the fire a little bit, and he'll adjust to it. He'll be fine. That's the kind of football player he is. But if you're Caleb Lomu and you can learn with a little bit less demand,
Ease into it a lot more, yeah.
he probably is one of those guys that needs to get physically stronger in the NFL, right? He's still very young, and to be a every down left tackle. I mean, I see Caleb Lomu having a similar trajectory to like a Garrett Bowles, where it takes him 3 or 4 years to really figure it all out from a physicality standpoint at this next level. Garrett Bowles was a penalty machine. He was holding people all the time because he physically didn't have everything he needed to stop those dudes, right? And then he figured it out. Now he's one of the better, more reliable tackles in the game. He's a team captain, all that kind of stuff. I could see Caleb Lomu having a similar trajectory, and that's not an insult at all. The difference being here that Caleb Lomu, you might not have to watch him go through the growing pains because he's doing it at practice, and he's doing it in the weight room, and he's doing it while he's learning from Trent Williams. This would be a dream for Caleb, for the San Francisco 49ers to get the heir apparent to that ever-crucial position. Man, I hope it plays out that way. Again, it's just a mock draft, so I'm not going to put too much stock in it, but I'm in love with the idea at the very least.
Yeah, and like Dan Patrick likes to say, it's very sexy to be the number 1 overall pick, right? But you often see guys who get picked later in the first round have more success many years because they're in better situations. The San Francisco 49ers, much better organization to play for than the Cleveland Browns or the Las Vegas Raiders, right? So that's another example of, hey, yeah, you're not going to get paid as much as your guy Spencer Fano because you can get picked as high, but you might have a longer, more successful career because you're in a better situation. And we believe Spencer Fano is going to overcome being part of a bad team and have a great career too.
As much as you can. Man, I can't stand that idea. Also, just the uniforms suck. They're just ugly. Brown and orange? Gross. Your dream, your childhood dream to play in the NFL. To pull that helmet on and trot out. Oh, crap. I'm in Cleveland.
I just say bad organization now. I mean, it's the Browns. They might be bad forever, as they have been. But there's a chance he not only overcomes it individually, but contributes to them turning it around.
Do you really believe that, James?
I mean, there's a chance.
James,
it's not a 0%.
I understand why you feel a need to say it because, you know, we love Spencer Fano, and there might be, you know, the Fano clan is large. There might be some Fanos listening like, come on, guys. It's not an indictment against Spencer or Logan. Maybe they both end up there. The Browns would have to draft, they would have to draft every good football player in.
Deshaun Watson's still under contract, OC.
If you gave the Cleveland Browns 6 first-round picks in a given year, I think they would still find a way to screw it up.
Listen, I don't believe it. I just wanted to put it out there that it's a non-zero chance. All right.
Okay, all right. Okay. Sure. What's going to happen first? The Cleveland Browns are going to win a Super Bowl, or a flaming asteroid obliterates planet Earth? 877-353-0700. Tell me your answer.
Maybe Lee Sterling can give us odds on that.
Give me one of these. Pull up one of these Kalshi or Poly Market, these prediction markets. Compare the two. Let's see which one has a higher chance. All right, Daily Dump is coming next. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Rojo's going to join us, the all-time great Utah safety, one of them at least, is going to join us next. We'll dive into a little Utah football with him and, of course, talk about the upcoming Super Bowl. He played at the highest level of college and in the NFL. We'll see his thoughts on Seahawks, Patriots. James, is there anywhere fans can listen to the Super Bowl?
Oh, let me see. Here on Utah's #1 sports talk, your exclusive home here in Utah of Super Bowl 60.
I actually knew that, you guys. Magic of radio there. I asked a question I knew the answer to try to build up the suspense, and then, boom, ESPN 700 brings you the Super Bowl. All right. Daily Dump brought to you by Valley Plumbing. By the way, Valley Plumbing, this is real, okay?
Oh, yeah. You scheduled an appointment with them on Friday.
During the show on Friday, all right, my friend who rents my old house from me sends me a picture of a leaking condensate pump.
Oh, you figured out what the pump was?
Yes, because like everyone was mocking me for, I was like, all right, well now I'm not doing live radio as I'm trying to figure out what this pump is, and I just was like, oh, what is that? Oh, it's a condensate pump.
Which you knew the whole time.
Of course.
Yeah.
No, so I scheduled the appointment while I'm doing radio. This is how easy it is at Valley Plumbing. The truck with the duck helps you out, okay? I'm literally doing a segment of radio, and I'm typing into the computer, right? The Valley Plumbing website has an appointment setting feature on it, a chat feature where you could say, here's my address, I need a plumber, I've got a leak, there it is. So while I'm talking on the radio, I set that appointment. The magic of technology. I leave right after, I meet him at the rental, he's there already, okay? He got there before I got there. Guess what the appointment window was? 2 to 4 p.m. At 2:11 p.m. he's at the house. Beautiful. All right?
And that's not a 6 to 8 hour, even 4 hour appointment window. That's a 2 hour appointment window. So much better.
2 hour appointment
even
window.
If he hadn't have gotten there till closer to 4.
He shows up right in the middle of it, or right early in the
start of it.
Like right at the start of it. So I was like, wow, this is great. We go downstairs. I'm like, yeah, it's one of these pumps. Look, there it is. It's failing or whatever. He's like, oh, yeah, let's see this one. This one's hardwired in. A lot of them you just have to plug into the wall here, but yours happens to be hardwired in. He's like, no problem. I'll fix this bad boy for you. Also, he put on those little plastic booties so that it doesn't track anything into the house. His shoes are cleaner than mine. I wasn't worried about it, but he put them on anyway. And a couple hours later, done, fixed. I didn't have to worry about it at all. Now, I respect all of you out there who like to do your own work. Plumbing is one of those things that if you screw it up, it's bad. So I got kids screaming for the wife at home. She wants me to be home. I let Valley Plumbing handle that. They handled it rapidly on a Friday afternoon heading into the weekend when it could have been like, yeah, gonna have to shut the water off. We'll come back on Monday, whatever. Done before dinner time. Beautiful stuff from Valley Plumbing. The truck with the duck can handle your plumbing needs. If you need to replace a condensate pump, they'll take care of that for you. Also, heating and air now. He looked at the furnace units down there in the rental. He's just like, oh, this one's probably okay. This one's starting to show a little wear and tear. You might want to have us look at it. Can I set an appointment for one of our HVAC people to come out? It's a free consultation. I was like, yeah, let's do that. They handle it all. The truck with the duck, just send them down to your furnace room where your water heaters are and everything. They're going to take care of everything for you, okay? Tell them OC sent you. Now, to the Daily Dump we go. We touched on this last week with the Alabama player, the Charles Bediako, suing to get back into NCAA basketball. An Alabama judge that was like, yeah, I'll definitely let you do that, who happened to be a season ticket holder and a contributor to like the Crimson Tide Club or whatever, ended up having to recuse himself from the actual trial, from the actual legal proceedings, because it was very obvious that he was biased in favor of the Crimson Tide. But now we're past that, okay? At first it was like, this guy played pros in Europe. And the NCAA was like, it doesn't matter, let him play. Let him play college basketball. We don't want the lawsuits. And then next it was like, well, this guy had like a two-way contract in the G League. And they're like, oh, whatever. That's not an NBA guy. It's not a real pro. It's fine. And then it was like, oh, this Charles Bediako, this is someone who got drafted. Like, this is a draft pick. And the NCAA, again, was just like, you know what, whatever. And now, James, is where we're getting to where the rubber really meets the road. Amari Bailey wants to go back to college basketball. Why does that matter? Who's Amari Bailey? Amari Bailey has played in NBA basketball games. And Amari Bailey is seeking a return after 10 games of NBA experience. He is seeking a return to NCAA basketball. He played at UCLA. He's 21 years old. He's hired an agent and a lawyer to fight the NCAA for eligibility, hoping that he can play one more season in college hoops.
Yeah, because he's only going to stop at one season if he gets this ridiculous eligibility.
Well, the thing is like you're right. Okay, so he's only supposed to be a senior right now, but we already have lawsuits saying, well, I shouldn't have to cut off my eligibility at 4 or even 5 years. This is a guy who played in NBA. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? You're like, hey, like Bryce James, LeBron's kid, playing at USC or something. And you go back, you're like, hey, I played a game against your dad last year, and now I'm playing against you. Isn't that weird? My name's Amari, by the way. Like, what are we doing here? I get it. If you want to go explore the NBA draft, which, by the way, you're now allowed to do, and see if you get picked and see how it goes, and it doesn't go your way, all right, fine. You can go back to college basketball. They already allow that. That makes sense. That's an exploratory kick the tires on this thing. Oh, guys, you know what? I decided to leave, like, Logan Fano has a year of eligibility left for Utah football. I don't think he's going to get drafted. I hope he does. I don't think he's going to get drafted, right? If Logan Fano goes through training camp with the NFL and he makes like a Kansas City Chiefs roster and he plays special teams in 10 games, or I guess that's an apples and oranges, because 10 games in the NFL is nearly a whole dang season. 10 games in the NBA is not. Let's say he plays in 2 games.
Yeah. He plays the whole preseason and 2 regular seasons.
Are we realistically going to look anyone in the face and say, I think he should come back and play Utah football? It didn't really work out the way he wanted it to in the NFL.
And Utah fans listening to this show, remove the crimson-colored glasses before you answer that question, because of course you'd be like, yeah, of course we'd want to let him play.
Watch,
but like,
let me do this instead. Keanu Tanuvasa is just like, I'm going to the NFL. I'm going to play in the league. It doesn't go well with the draft, okay? He somehow makes his way onto a roster, and he's on field goal block, and he plays like 9 snaps in 2 games in the NFL. Are you really going to be like, well, just bring him on back, let him play at BYU?
Wow, that was such a good fix.
The answer is no. They're pro athletes at that point. If you are good enough to play in the NBA and you have been in 10 regular season NBA games, if they're 10 preseason games, I don't care. You are now gone. You're not allowed. If you do this in the NBA, it's going to happen in college, and guess where it's going to end up, James? I would love to go back and play a couple more games of high school football. Wouldn't that be fun?
I'm 45 years old, but I would love to do that.
Yeah, you know how much I dominate those kids now because I'm just so much stronger than them? Like, there's just this slippery slope gets to a point. If I had brought this up, if we had a time machine and if I went back 5 years and I said, today, there's an NBA player that will eventually try to get himself back into college basketball, everyone would laugh you off the air. What are you talking about, dude? That makes no sense. No, I'm telling you, there's a guy, he's going to have 3 points and 3 minutes in NBA games over the course of 10 games, And he's going to say, no, I'd rather go back and play at UCLA some more. And it's likely he's going to win that case. People will be like, no. No, because nobody believed that the slippery slope was this slippery 5 years ago. And now it is. So what does it look like 5 years from now if there's no adult in the room that just goes, dude, sue us then? Fine. Do the lawsuit. You were an NBA player.
There's gotta be a check put on this. And what, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I guess it was, when NIL officially became legal in NCAA, I was laughing at everyone who was trying to say we can put guardrails on this without naming them employees, without letting them collectively bargain, and saying, yeah, no, you can't. And I was all for the no, you can't until we get this. They get a voice in the room at the bargaining table, right? But now we're to a point where that collectively bargaining, to your credit, OC, is still feels way too messy to try to put together in the next, I don't know how many years. It feels like it's way far off. I'm fed up. Like, we need something to check these players who have all the power now.
And here's the other frustrating thing about it, is that the precedent set, these are incremental changes and incremental thresholds that keep being broken. And this case is a perfect example of it, all right? Because his legal team, Amari Bailey's legal team, is basing their argument on 2 cases from this year. It's not, hey, well, we just think we're fighting the system, and you treated Ed O'Bannon wrong, and so we're gonna pick up that flag now. We're gonna march it forward. His legal team is using this as the defense, or this as the case. Well, hold on a minute. James Najee is playing for Baylor right now. I was picked 10 picks after him. I signed the same contract, the same type of contract, this 2-way 10-day thing, like Charles Bediako, who now is fighting with Alabama, and you're going to let him play. So if you're not going to stop them from playing, you legally can't stop me from playing just because I happen to actually step foot on an NBA floor. And again, if nobody steps up and says, all right, that's the threshold we cannot break. Actually playing NBA minutes is that, like, if you want to make your case that a 2-way contract or a 10-day contract or just being drafted or being a pro in Europe, if those don't apply to NCAA basketball and you really want to die on that hill, fine. I will listen to you. I will disagree with you, but I'll go ahead and listen to you. If you don't stop and say playing actual NBA minutes is too much for us to let these people in, then a guy here who has played NBA minutes in 10 games, and he's allowed back in, then the next guy's like, well, I only played in 20 games. He played in 10. I only played in 20. And then they're like, well, yeah, I guess if we're going to be consistent, we can't really arbitrate. Like, where is the line then?
I'm LeBron James. I only played 25 years.
LeBron James has all of his eligibility left.
Let me play for Ohio State.
Like, I got to play with my son. I got to play with my son, Bronny. I want to play with my son, Bryce. He's not ready for the NBA. I'm going to play college basketball with him. And I know that's an absurd example, and it's not actually going to happen because, well, I'm 99.9% sure it's not actually going to happen.
How can you say it's not actually going to happen? Just like the Browns will never win a Super Bowl. How can you say that?
But how do you shut the floodgates back if you allow someone with actual pro minutes into college sports? Someone who's actually been out there on an NBA floor and scored NBA baskets. How do you then say, no, 10 games is not too many, but 20 games is? 20 games is okay, but 40 games is not. You know what? I know you played one season, but 2 seasons is too many. That's the problem I have with all of these things that we've been watching happen. Is nobody thought about the extent, and I was guilty of this at the very, very beginning of all these changes, because I remember I was doing a radio show on SiriusXM with Rick Neuheisel, and I was just like, no, I think it's good that you allow open transfer, no penalty at least one time. And his assertion as a coach who'd been around the game a lot longer and a smarter man than me, he was like, if you do this, if you allow open penalty-free transfers, it will be an absolute free-for-all mess. And I was like, no, coach, because starters won't leave. The only reason you want to go somewhere else is because you're not being treated fairly at your current school. And he was just like, there's plenty of starters that feel like they're not treated fairly. So I lacked the foresight back then, and these leaders still lack the foresight to understand that when you are more and more progressively more permissive, there is no end to it. You know, kids that were raised this way, maybe you are a kid that was raised this way, where you had these permissive parents that at first they were like, your curfew is midnight. And then you're like, come on, 12:30 is no different than midnight. All right, fine. 1 o'clock's no different than 12:30. Yeah, you're right. 1:30 is no different than 1. Okay, fine. 4 a.m.'s no different than 1:30, Mom. Yeah, you're okay. You don't even need to come home anymore. Like, that excessive permission ends up breaking these systems down. And it already has in NCAA basketball. And it's going to, if Amari Bailey is granted some injunction where he can come off of an NBA floor back onto an NCAA floor, then we have lost the plot entirely, all the way. All right, got to take a quick break here. That's your Daily Dump, brought to you by Valley Plumbing. The truck with the duck, it's now Valley Plumbing, Heating, and Air, so they can handle your vent cleaning, your furnaces, your air conditioners, and everything else. Rojo is going to join us in our next segment. We'll try to get him right off the top. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show. Welcome in Rojo, legend in the Utah football world, Robert Johnson, kind enough to join us here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Rojo, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good. How y'all doing today?
Man, doing great. Glad we get a chance to catch up with you. We'll talk a little Utes. We'll talk some pro football as well with the Super Bowl coming up this weekend. It's been a minute, so, I mean, it's kind of old news now, but it's not really, because we still don't know what the Morgan Scalley era is going to look like. I just want to let you get on record and tell me what your expectations are for Morgan Scalley taking over this program, a place where he's been for his entire coaching career and his playing career.
I mean, I know for a fact that Coach Scalley going to do good. He's going to do good. It's just, we just have to be patient as fans, because at the end of the day, this is Coach Scalley being a head coach. You know, we all got used to him being a defensive coordinator, or, I mean, for you in my case, a GA or a player, you know, things like that. But I believe that he's going to do an awesome job. He's already making some changes. He made some quick changes, some big changes. I was like, okay. But we just have to be patient and give time for growth. But then on top of that, give time to let Coach Scalley put the program where he wants it to be, and just continue it to be as high as we wanted it when we had Coach Whitaker.
You were part of the early days of Kyle Whittingham, same thing, taking over as a first-time head coach after being a long-time assistant in the program and as a long-time coordinator. And, you know, that transition, because of the legendary achievements that happened throughout the years, like, some people easily forget, or maybe some of the people listening weren't even born when it was happening, but it wasn't always so perfect and smooth, right? So take me back to those early days, and obviously you were part of massive success, but not only massive success, there were growing pains even when you were on this roster. What did those look like, and how did you and the coaching staff overcome them in that time?
I mean, like, thinking back, like, my very first year here at the University of Utah, that was back in 2007. And if the fans remember that year, that was the year I think we barely made a bowl game. We played the Poinsettia Bowl game against Navy, and that year was a tough year. It was an up and down, but then we finally figured it out. It took time, and we figured it out because we lost that year to Air Force at home, and you know, that was something that you're not used to seeing. And then we lost to UNLV in Vegas that year. But then towards the end of the season, we figured it out because Coach Witt stayed with the plan, and we figured it out. And as the fans are listening, we wind up taking those wins, and then it wound up pushing us into that undefeated season for the next year. But it took time. Like I just was mentioning, it took time. Those growing pains. It's a lot of times you have to be able to be a coach, like the way Coach Witt would look at it, put the players in positions to be successful. I think Coach Scalley will be pulling in that exact same mindset that you might have a Paul Kruger that was a quarterback, and then it's like, hey, we got to put him at the end, and you wind up being really good for the team. So it just takes a lot of patience, and it takes a lot of, we have to try things to see what makes sense. And I think Coach Scalley is going to fully do that, and the fans just need to be okay with it. There's going to be some years it's going to be rough, but it's going to be a lot of success that's going to be looking forward for the future.
You have a unique role because of, you know, your status with the program, but also the fact that, you know, you're in that world educating young people and being able to say, hey, I've walked in these shoes before. I followed this path. I made it to the league, which is what every high school athlete, every transfer coming into the University of Utah, that's what they want to do, right? So we talk about patience for the fan base. How do you preach patience to players who now exist in a system, unlike when you were playing or when I was playing, where you don't have to be patient? If you're like, oh man, we had an 8-4 year, we had a 7-5 year, but I'm a good player. I don't need to stay here and see what next year could be. I don't need to see if we can go from 9-4 to 13-0 because USC's calling me or Texas is calling me or whatever because I've shown my individual talents. How do you preach patience from a program perspective, from a player perspective?
That's one of the toughest questions to answer because we all know nowadays that NIL money is big. Like like me and some of the boys back then that we played together, we cracked jokes about like, well, would you left? You know, like if this team was giving you $100,000, like would you have left and things like that. And every every player has its own. Every player has different situations, so it becomes hard to have a really great player or a player that's potentially about to become great, and having that player sitting on the bench, and then you have a USC that's calling and it's time to go. It's like, I have the money, they're paying me. It's really hard to just answer it with the full 100% answer. But what I can answer from my experience is that me coming here to the University of Utah, it was one of the best decisions that I made, and that was because the coaches allowed me to develop into the person that I was, and the system that was installed at that when I was playing was one of the best systems that fit me. So I would tell players that if they're listening, that you need to find a system that fits you. Don't just chase the money. Trust me, find a system, because systems can make a player good and systems can make a player bad. So, you kind of see some of that with the NIL money being thrown around with some of these college players, where they wind up leaving and they wind up not having a good year at the college that they were at. Then they try to go back to the college that they was at. Then they start chasing the coaches. It's a lot of different variables that can click into this type of situation of the new generation NIL money.
I don't know if I tell myself and people on the air this to make myself feel better or what, but I mean, the numbers say it. There have not been a lot of guys who have left Utah and had it work out better in the new spot, right?
That's true.
There's been a couple guys who've done great. Jaquindon Jackson is probably the best example. He went to Arkansas and he had, when he was healthy, he was great there, and that's the type of player he is. Whatever. There's a lot more examples of guys who think the grass is going to be greener on the other side, and it's not. And very specifically, guys who leave Utah and end up and they see a role reduced elsewhere or whatever. I mean, do you learn from other people's example when you take yourself back to when you're 19, 20, 21 years old? You're a college football player. The world is your oyster. You're the big man on campus, whatever. Do you look at and say, well, man, this receiver who left and went to USC, he ended up having like 3 catches, man. Or this guy we thought was going to be good playing at Alabama, he ended up having 2 tackles in the whole dang year at Alabama. Maybe I shouldn't leave. Or do you have to make, at that age group, you have to make mistakes yourself before you really learn?
I believe that as an 18-year-old, you're looking at money.
Fair.
You're looking at money. It kind of like my example of myself. When I came here as a junior college transfer, you have to remember Steve Tate was the starting safety.
Yep.
And then Joe Dale was a returning safety. Like he played a little bit last year, and he was a returner. So when I came here, I did not even have a plan in my brain of like, I will be starting at some point. I just came here because I remember telling Coach Sataki that, I just need to make sure I get my degree. And he was like, I can promise you a degree. No matter what it is, no matter what the season looked like, I can promise you that. And that was one of the main reasons. But then once again, going back to exactly what I said, everybody's situation is a little bit different. But I believe that most 18-year-olds, it's about the money. And it's sad that this is how it's going now, but it's about the money. And you do have some players that will stay because of the coaches or stay because the program fits the system that they have. But it's far and beyond, because you're totally right. It's a lot of players, as I was sitting here thinking as you said it, it's a lot of players that have left Utah and they have not had a really good experience leaving, and then wind up coming back, or some of them wind up coming back. So it's one of those things of just, as an 18-year-old, everybody has to look into it and see what fits them and makes them go good or make them want to do stuff.
Robert Johnson is my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show. We're talking a little Utah football right now. Do you know Coach Odom? He's back to be the safeties coach. Did you play for him?
Yeah, Coach, he's my guy. Like between him and Coach Sataki, a funny story that we talk about is that my first year here, the first 3 games, I didn't play. And going into that UCLA week, when we wind up destroying UCLA, we beat them. They was ranked 11. We beat them 44-6. But that week, leading up to that week, I wasn't playing much, and I remember going to Coach Odom was like, y'all can just send me home. Like, just send me closer to LA so I can play a little bit, or at least have my family I can see. And I just remember him and Coach Sataki both was just like, hey, like, you're gonna start this week. Like, you sure you want to leave? And it's like, well, I guess I'm gonna stay. and Coach Odom, he the one that between Coach Sataki giving me here to the University of Utah, and Coach Odom seeing something within me that just was like, Rojo will be a better free safety than a strong safety. I think that right there, it clicked, and we changed up the defense a little bit because you remember back then we used to have the rock and roll, where it was like both, like all the safeties was pretty much the same size, and if there was a receiver or tight end that motions to the other side, we call it rock and roll, where the other safety that's in the post will come down to be in the box, and the box safety bumps back to be the post. But Coach Odom and Coach Sataki, as well as Coach Anderson, they just was like, how about we just keep Rojo back deep? So if that tight end motions over, we'll just send Steve Tate to the other side instead of him bumping back. I believe that Coach Odom was a big component of that, and he helped out a lot, and it made our defense change over the years. And then on top of that, it made me a better player, knowing that I can play a real true free safety and play number to number and cover the field and be the human eraser. So I know a lot about Coach Odom, and he helped a lot with my career.
And I love that story, and I just want to stress and express for people, like, you have to remember when we're talking about a minor tweak like that being made to a Utah defense, this is a Utah defense that came from Fred Whittingham through Kyle Whittingham. Like, it's not one that is an easy thing. It has to make sense if changes are going to be made because it's been so successful on down the years. So to adjust something like that, it takes a lot from a whole coaching staff working together. And to be a guy who's even like willing to propose that, like that's a big thing for a coach.
It's something that's so small, but then a lot of fans probably wouldn't even understand it unless you go look at the stats. Because once you start looking at the stats, you'll see that most of the safeties the years prior before I came, we was making 100-plus tackles. And we was always the non-counted player in the box. So we the one that was making the tackles as the linebackers was sacrificing. And what I mean by sacrificing, fans, so you can clearly get it, is that if there's a fullback that's about to come down the block, it's normally it used to be the linebackers will go take that block to free up a safety to go make the tackle. But then when I kind of came into the system, it switched it up a little bit where now it was like, well, we don't even need to have a 100-tackle safety, 100 tackle safeties for the season because now we got one safety that's going to stick back there. So now we can start lighting them up and start blitzing them from all different angles because now it's a safety that can really cover the full field. So that's kind of where we went undefeated at because if you go back and look at that season, we was blitzing, like Coach Anderson, we was blitzing a whole lot. And there was a lot of times that Coach Anderson, as well as Coach Scally as my safeties coach and Coach Odom, it was like, well, Rojo's going to cover the whole field. So we can play press man, and Rojo just covered. And it just worked out really, really well. And the defense did change. We still had our common stuff, but it changed a lot when I wind up staying at free safety.
A beautiful thing for everyone to look back on. You can always find the Sugar Bowl highlights. They're available on YouTube and everywhere else. I want to switch gears, talk a little NFL with you here. I mean, we're watching this weekend. We're watching a Super Bowl where the Patriots are back and the Seattle Seahawks with Sam bleepin' Darnold as their starting quarterback are the heavy favorite in this Super Bowl. And obviously, I mean, Darnold, this is his fourth stop. It's his fourth stop, and even when he won games for the Minnesota Vikings, they still weren't convinced that he was capable of what he's been showing us in Seattle. And now he's on the brink potentially of being not only a Super Bowl champion, but you know, he'd be one of the guys we probably put as a favorite to be Super Bowl MVP. What should we learn from a story like this, Rojo, where a guy perseveres through, you know, backup situation, expected to be a great player, but you're with the Jets, and it's hard to be a great player with the Jets, and then even when you win with the Vikings, they say, "Nah, see you later." What should we learn as fans from this?
Just being consistent. Like Sam Darnold, he's been through a whole lot, and mentioning it again, system fits. Some systems don't. Maybe the system that was with the New York Jets, it didn't fit him. It didn't fit his style, but he was drafted there, and it's, you know, everybody can't be a Eli Manning where you kind of request, like, I'm not going to play for you unless I go for another team when you get drafted. But in Sam Darnold's case, I'm really happy and proud of him. He's one of those, I don't know him as a personal level, but I do know from what I've seen and I've heard is that, you know, he was always consistent. He made sure that what they say, bank on yourself, or bet on yourself. He bet on himself, and it's working out. Not too many people can get to the Super Bowl, and think about this, fans. Like Dan Marino never made it to a Super Bowl, from my understanding. Like, never have, never even played in one, from my understanding of what I read. But then you got somebody named Sam Darnold that come in and bounced around through different systems, different teams, different organizations. But somehow, some way, he figured out a way to bet on himself that he can get things done. And now look, he's in the Super Bowl with an opportunity to be one of the greatest teams, or to be in the record books, I'll say, as one of those NFL Super Bowl teams.
We were talking about that system fit earlier because we were looking at the mock draft, and ESPN's mock. They got the first and second rounds, and they've got 2 Utes in the first round. They got Spencer Fano going to the Browns, which for obvious reasons, I'm like, man, great to be a number 6 overall pick, but who wants to be with the Browns? Because you're never going to win anything. And then Caleb Lomu going to the San Francisco 49ers, where the expectation would be that he would back up Trent Williams, who's one of the all-time greats at the position. And I was like, man, that to me is a perfect example of how, yeah, it's wonderful to be that top pick, but man, that's going to be tough sledding potentially with a Browns organization, versus if you can be a little bit later on in the draft and in that type of offense where there's so much value placed on offensive linemen, and you're understudying behind someone like Trent Williams. Like, I get it. We all want to be the number 1 pick or the number 5 pick instead of the number 27 pick, but that's a fit situation for me.
Yeah, well, think about this, though. Think about Denver Broncos. Garrett Bowles, you remember?
Yeah, perfect.
When he got there, Denver was not good at all. It was not good. I felt like the organization was going to get sold at some point. Like, that's where they was at. But then Garrett Bowles, he balled out and did what he needed to be doing, and made sure to stay loyal to them and worked hard. And they almost had the opportunity to make it to the Super Bowl this year, where you would never think that Denver was going to be pretty good. But throughout the years, Garrett stayed there, and he did exactly what he needed to do. I mean, if Spence Checketts get drafted to the Cleveland Browns, it sucks. I ain't gonna say, oh, it's great. No, it sucks. But I feel like Cleveland Browns their organization might start putting the right pieces around the most important positions. So if they do draft them, they already got a quarterback. They got quarterbacks. Yeah, 2 quarterbacks that's pretty solid. Running back is pretty solid. And see what happens, because any given Sunday a team can win, any given Sunday a team can lose. And if you think about some of these teams that was not as good, they're all of a sudden becoming better. And then the teams that was really good, they're not even making the playoffs. So it just matters about what system you fall into, but then also, can the player be consistent and bet on himself?
As a former Tennessee Titan, how do you process that organization moving on from Mike Vrabel and then him being in the Super Bowl 2 years later?
All I can say is that go Titans, tighten up, That's all I can say. But because I mean, like the fans, I don't think the fans really know that I'm a Raiders fan. Like I'm a full-time Raiders fan, but then I'm a Titans fan as well because they drafted me.
Sure.
Both of the organizations are. Yeah, he talks about organizations that just can't get right. It's getting tough.
So Fernando Mendoza to the Raiders, do you think that'll be a good fit if that's where they take him?
I was saying that would be a good start, because right now I guess I'm more one of those guys that's like, let's just win more games than we won last year. Let's win more this game. Like if we won 3 last year, let's just win 4, and then and now we're doing good. But yeah, getting him will be a really good thing to do. But then you got to work on the biggest and the most important piece. Like if most of us football players, we know the most important piece when it comes to playing football is the D lineman. It's the big boys. You got to be able to control that. And I feel like whether it's the Raiders or the Titans, or just you look at you look at the teams that's now in the Super Bowl. Like you have offensive linemen that's really good. You have defensive linemen that's really good. Them the ones that wins most of those games. Don't get me wrong. The fans see the quarterback throwing the ball and the running back running. Yeah, that's the excitement part. But the dirty part is the trenches, the big boys. You got to have the big boys right. If you don't have the big boys right, then it messes up a lot of things. Can't protect the quarterback, or can't get to the quarterback, or can't stop the run, or can run. So you have to remember that as us football players that play, offensive line is the most important piece. So you can put a Cam Ward at quarterback, and he's awesome, but look, if the offensive line can't hold their blocks long enough for him, and then it turns into how quick he might get injured.
Well, we saw that in playoffs with the Chargers going up against the Broncos and just getting murdered. Like,
Yeah.
you gotta,
Look at the Texans. Remember in the playoffs, the Texans, they pretty much won because they D-line. Like, they D-line kick, like who they played against, because I didn't know CJ had a terrible game, but then the D-line played so good, they even scored on defense, I think. I can't remember what game that was in the playoffs, but it was like, this is what matters. The D-line and the offensive line is what's the most important piece to sometimes having successful programs or successful organizations, to having bad programs or bad organizations.
with that in mind, and I agree with you 100%. Like, one of the bright spots, one of the few bright spots on this Raiders roster is Max Crosby, who's an excellent pass rusher, and that's a huge part of it, right? Now, you could try to keep building talent around him, or you could say, hey, you know, we're too far away right now. Let's ship out Max Crosby and get back like 4 picks, probably 2 first-round picks for him. What would you do if I put you in charge and I say you're managing this roster now, Rojo? Would you keep Max Crosby, or would you use him to maximize draft capital?
My biggest thing, we'll look at the draft players, the players that are being drafted, what's available. Because you never know. You could probably get a Max Crosby from an incoming draft pick that's coming in, and you get him for the cheaper, and then say if you ship off Max, you get your 4 picks. You can wind up getting another Max Crosby and then turn around and get offensive linemen and get some weapons to get around the running back that the Raiders have. But it's one of those, like, it's sometimes it's a smart move when you do it and it's good. It's a dumb move when you do it and it doesn't make sense. Talking about the Raiders really fast, they got rid of Mack. Couldn't understand that. They traded Mack. Y'all remember Mack? Like, one of the best defensive linemen. Now he's with the Chargers. But that trade right there, it set the organization back, because you trade one of the best defensive linemen and you get picks, but you didn't use the picks the right way. So in my case, I would keep Max unless I see somebody that just jumps off the board, that's just like you watching them on film, it's like they fit the system really well and they're cheaper. Let's get rid of Max and bring in some picks so we can do what we need to do. So it's different variables again. So I know I'm always talking, like I'm always on the fence when I'm answering questions, but it's how do you feel at that moment, and what do you see when it comes to trusting your other components of coaching?
Rojo, it's always great to hear your thoughts, man. We're going to keep leaning on your expertise. We'll chat again during spring ball, all right?
Awesome. That sounds good. And, man, and congratulations, man. You know, doing good. The show is amazing. So thank you. Congratulations for letting me on, and then congratulations on all the success that's about to happen.
I appreciate that. Robert Johnson, one of the legends of this Utah football program, and just crazy informative on all that. Like, the little tweaks, right? I did not know. Like what he just told us, I did not know that Coach Odom, through that process, helped to make the change that really elevated that Sugar Bowl defense, because they adjusted to personnel. And this coaching staff, most good coaching staffs are adept at that, where they realize, like, all right, my system matters, but I can flex a little bit in my system if we have the right personnel. And they recognized that Rojo was not built to be a box safety, and he's not built to be interchangeable free safety, strong safety. He's a true free safety, and so they made that adjustment on the fly, and it obviously worked out nicely. So,
when the way he described that, OC, it makes perfect sense with how the game has evolved. From, he was talking about linebackers sacrificing taking the block from the fullback, right?
Yeah.
And like the game has progressed obviously beyond that to a lot more of a passing, an air raid attack in both college and the pros. And that what he describes makes total sense. And we were talking about foresight, the lack of foresight and leadership from the NCAA perspective. That's incredible foresight by Derek Odom and Morgan Scalley, who was a GA at the time, if I'm not mistaken, or he was at the beginning of his coaching career anyway at Utah.
Yeah, he was just starting out being a defensive assistant. Yeah.
To see, hey, we got this guy. We can change how we do things a little bit to accommodate him and what he can do in the passing game as a safety. But also, You know what? That's kind of how the game's going anyway. So this could help us into the future as well. I mean, that's really cool to hear that kind of the origin story of that.
I also got triggered when he was talking about that because that's one of the things when you're so coaching at the high school level now is way better than it used to be. But when I was a high schooler, dear old Jordan High, playing middle linebacker, your responsibility in a run play was to make the tackle, right? Your responsibility in a pass play, we always ran man. Your responsibility was to pick up first back out of the backfield in most cases, or potentially drop back into that shallow center of the field. Like, that was it. I had 2 pass responsibilities potentially, and when it came to run plays, it was like, see the ball, get the ball. It was not any more complicated than that. Going to the University of Utah and learning that defense where they were like, no. This tackle, if there's a pulling guard, or like he just said, if there's a fullback, you as the linebacker, if this is your gap responsibility, based on the defensive call, you're either taking that block on with your inside shoulder or your outside shoulder. You're either trying to funnel this thing back inside or you're trying to spill it outside to where the safety is coming. You're supposed to know where the safety is coming from. It's a lot more complicated. And again, I know now high school coaches are incorporating some of that in a way that they didn't back when I was younger. But it was one of the things that made it so jarring to make that transition to college football, because you were like, well, as long as I plug up this hole and I create a pile up so either I can make the tackle or somebody else can make the tackle, that's a win. I'm going to grade out positively on this. But the attention to detail in that Fred Whittingham, Kyle Whittingham, Gary Anderson, Kalani Sitake, Morgan Scalley defensive lineage has evolved in such a way that it was like, no, you ran into that hole and you put your body there, but you clogged it up so now the safety can't come down, so that the cutback lane is there for the running back. You were supposed to take on the block with your inside shoulder, and you didn't do that. So you actually failed that rep, and you're like, what are you talking about? I was right there where the ball was. And it's like, no, that's not, like, the elevation of what you have to be able to think and process and do is pretty significant. And for Robert Johnson to be part of adjusting that on the fly to accommodate his skill set is a thing. That's pretty dang cool to hear that story. I can't wait to get Coach Odom on. We'll ask him about that now. Now that we've heard that from Rojo, we'll ask him about his memory of doing that and making that tweak and adjustment whenever we can talk with Coach Odom, who's back on this Utah football coaching staff after, being all over the place, and of course being an assistant coach here after his playing career as a safety and as a center fielder on the baseball team. Two-sport athlete, no big deal. All right, we're going to double up here. We're going to come back. We're going to talk a little Utah Mammoth. They got to get this win against the Canucks. These are 2 points that you have to secure tonight at the Delta Center. How do they get it done? Mammoth insider Tom Callahan will tell us. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Utah Mammoth in action tonight against the Canucks of Vancouver. Tom Callahan, host of Locked On Mammoth podcast. Mammoth Insider joins us now to talk about that and much more around the NHL. Tom, how are you?
I'm doing well. How's things going this week?
We're doing all right. I want to get to the Mammoth here. I want to talk about that, but we have to touch on the Stadium Series where Tampa Bay playing the Boston Bruins, and the teams showed up. Tampa Bay in the Buccaneers creamsicle uniforms, full football uniforms for the NHL team. And then on the opposite side, the Boston Bruins get off the bus wearing colonial patriot, like period piece uniforms. Just an absolute phenomenal thing, leaning into the Super Bowl matchups and the Super Bowl coming. What do you think of them, like, having that kind of fun with this Stadium Series game?
I loved it. Number one, I love those Buccaneers creamsicle uniforms, and no one can tell me different. I have a thing for orange. The pirate treasure map around the rink was also awesome. I loved the uniforms. I thought everything about it was great. It felt like college football in a lot of ways, and I loved it. I thought the whole thing was great. Then you get a goalie fight and all kinds of crazy stuff going on. I mean, game goes to a shootout. Like, that was fantastic. I loved every minute of that.
The goalie fights, we've seen a couple of them already this NHL season, and look, the casual hockey fan loves it when these guys mix it up. Inside the dressing room, I guess more from a coaching perspective, how is that processed when the goalies skate out there and start hammering away with the big pads on?
You're worried because those guys are expensive. That's like, can you imagine a quarterback fight at the 50-yard line? That's what that is. That freaks out everyone internally, but yeah, the fans love it. But nobody gets hurt, and I'll be honest with you, as someone who has played goalie my entire life, it is really hard to throw punches with all those pads on and get close. So, generally nobody's getting hurt. That's what you're hoping for. So yeah, no, that freaks people out a little bit internally, but I mean, it's just in the heat of the moment. Swayman wanted to go. He came to center, and Vasilevsky obliged him, so off you go.
Also around the league, did Pasternak get jobbed by the nullified overtime goal?
I mean, no. There was a penalty coming on the play, so as soon as Boston touches the puck, that whistle goes. Whether they heard it or not, I don't know. But was the call iffy? Maybe. I don't know if I'd make that call in overtime. But, I mean, so if you want to talk about the penalty, was it legit? It could have gone either way. But as far as when the whistle blew, yes, that's supposed to happen. As soon as there's a penalty and it's touched by the team taking the penalty, then, yeah, the play stops. So from that standpoint, no, he didn't get hosed. But I just don't know if I'd have made that call.
All right, let's focus in on our beloved Utah Mammoth now. They had a nice little road trip. The previous homestand was important with stacking the points, and they've looked strong up till these last two games. Now lost 5-4 to the Hurricanes, and at home the other night 3-2 to the Stars. And you dig yourself an early hole, and it's really, really hard to climb out of that. How do they avoid that moving forward? How do they stop giving up the early first period goals?
These guys have reminded me, I'm going to give the listeners a visual right now of, if you've ever been at a sink with separate taps for hot and cold water, you're either getting cold out of the faucet or you're getting hot out of the faucet, and they're two separate faucets. And I kind of feel like that's the story of the Mammoth this year. They're hot, then they're cold. And the funny thing is, unfortunately, they got cold at the end of that Carolina game. And I can say, honestly, I can write that off to, things happen. Over the course of a season, 82 games, you're going to have one of those. What I wanted to see was how they came out against Dallas. And I wanted to see if they turned that kind of anger and frustration into effort and achievement against Dallas, or if they let it sit and fester a little bit in their heads. And I think it was a little bit more of the latter. You're right, they did have a slow start against Dallas, and they didn't really recover from that. special teams has been bad, right? So we'll talk about that maybe a little bit later. But 5-on-5, it's funny. Andre Tourney says, "Well, I think our team won the game 5-on-5," and I don't agree. They had 11 shots heading into the third. They scored on one of them, and that goal probably shouldn't have been allowed to stand. It should have been called back for goaltender interference. It wasn't. So, okay, good. That's a nice break. They score on their 12th shot, and so now they've got 2 goals on 12 shots, and now in the third period, you're like, oh, it's a game. They can do something with this. I never got the impression that they had it all going their way or that they were the better team 5-on-5. And I think for this Mammoth team right now, to try to avoid the slow starts, the best you can do is really try to load up your energy early, and you've got to throw some hits. You've got to go out there and be physical without taking penalties, and they've had a problem with that lately. They are stepping over that line far too often. And the other thing that kind of gets me is when the effort's not there, you take penalties that are born of not moving your feet, not continuing to skate, and that you're hooking, you're holding, those types of penalties, or they're doing something away from the play, which, you know, you don't need to take a penalty when it's not preventing a scoring chance. And those are the frustrating things. They kill your momentum, and then their special teams hasn't been good, so you're giving up power play goals, and you're not scoring on the power play when you get them. That's the frustrating part, and all of that goes into just not having that energy and that carry through, which is why, quite frankly, it's a good thing Vancouver's coming to town, because they're not very good.
Staying on the special teams thing, is there an element to the timeliness of the penalties? Is it? Well, I won't throw out multiple choice here. You just tell me what you think the root of the special teams, and specifically opponent power play goals, and the frequency with which they're scoring. Where is that rooted?
So, timing is bad. Taking, especially the early penalties against Dallas, the uncharacteristic mistakes, and like 2 delay a game penalties, when they take too many men on the ice penalties. Again, fans understand a penalty worthless effort, and coaches do too. If you have a guy that you take them down on a legitimate scoring chance, that's okay. I mean, yeah, it's a penalty. No, you don't want to. It means you were probably out of position, but you may have prevented a goal. Okay, we're cool with that. Or if you're taking a penalty where you're standing up for your teammate, also good. We'll kill that one off. The problem is when you start taking the men's mistake penalties, or the, I'm not moving my feet, I'm not putting forth the effort, this guy's getting by me, oh no, I better put my arm out, put my stick out, because I'm not skating with them. That's where it becomes a problem. And that's the penalties you don't want to take. And I think that beyond that, on the penalty kill, yes, special teams can be streaky, and it can go hot and cold, as the Mammoth have this year. But to me, killing penalties is all about effort. It is the hardest thing to do in hockey because it is constant stopping and starting. It's physically exhausting. And if you are not giving it your all, and even sometimes when you are, you're going to get beat. You have to have your goaltender be especially sharp in those cases, and you have to have just all-out effort for that 2 minutes to be able to kill it out. And I think that that's why, it's been tough against the more highly skilled teams that the Mammoth have been giving up those power play goals. But, I mean, we say that. The penalty kill actually was good for most of the year. Now, they've slid down to 19th, which is just in front of the bottom third. But the power play is terrible. It's dead last now. And I just don't understand why, that definition of insanity is continuing to do the same thing and expecting different results. I mean, I would be trying so many different things right now on this power play, and they just seem to keep beating their heads against the same spot in the wall.
I noticed that, and I don't know where the threshold is when you're saying, all right, we got to let these guys work out of the slump, and so give them another shot, give them another shot, give them another power play or two, versus saying, all right, it's not a commentary on our lack of belief in you. We just have to mix it up. I mean, it feels like this dressing room, this team culture would be solid enough that you could say, hey, guys, you see the numbers. You see it's not working. We're just going to start throwing things at a wall and see what sticks. Why hasn't that happened?
I wish I had the answer to that. The fans wish they had the answer to that, because this goes back. This is not 2 weeks or 2 months. This is not even a year and a half they've been in Utah. This has been something that's been going on for a while, and we've all been asking these questions. I mean, if it's me, I look at you can change the X's and O's, you can change the personnel, you can move, and a lot of people are saying maybe take Sergachev off the first power play unit. They even floated the idea on the broadcast, which made me very surprised the other day. But everybody knows you're going to try to set up Dylan Gunther for the one time over there, and then they take that away. And okay, use him as bait. Move Sergachev down to the other side. Have now 2 one-time options, and then have somebody else running it through the top of the blue line, or change the X's and O's completely. You're right. I would. I'd throw the whole thing in a blender and hit frappe right now, because what you're doing is not working. You're dead last. There is nowhere else to go but up. So why don't you change the personnel? That's a question. And what kills me, I'm glad you brought this up. I have thoughts. Andre Tourney, every time he talks post-game or morning skate or whenever at practice about it, always says, yeah, we're not, and he said this the other day, we just don't seem to have any execution right now. We don't seem to have things going our way for whatever reason. And, it's almost like it's like he's passing the buck. And the question is, it's like, okay, well, if you're saying that they don't have any swagger on the power play, and they don't have the execution on the power play, I'm like, isn't that your job to make that change? And it's just, I feel like he's just passing the buck down to the assistant coaches. And look, that's fine if they're running the power play, but as the head coach, man, I expect something out of you too.
I mean, it makes perfect sense to say, halt the insanity. Make the change. Don't blame it on the analytics. Don't blame it on anything else. Just like, and if you want to give credit to somebody else when it starts to get fixed, go ahead and do that. But, man, it doesn't make a lot of sense to keep doing these things the same way. Tom Callahan, by the way, our guest here, talking Utah Mammoth. Let's stay on this for just another second. Let's say they made that decision today. Like, all right, guys, we got to do this. We've got to, I like how you said it, we got to throw it in the blender. Do you do it against Vancouver, a team that's bad enough that you can probably make a couple mistakes or have things go poorly and still survive it? Or do you do it, in the more, like, Colorado and Minnesota are coming up at the end of February? When do you do it? Does it matter what opponent you do it against?
Well, I think Vancouver's a great time to do it because they're dead last in penalty kill. So, yes, this is your prime opponent to try some new stuff. Because, you can probably get away with a little more. That said, I mean, so that's interesting, right? Worst power play against the worst penalty kill for special teams. You also have the Olympic break coming up. And so knowing that, if you start to install a new system now, or new personnel now, look, you're going to bruise some egos, and that's part of the problem. But at the end of the day, if you put in the new system now and you let guys work through the X's and O's, you've got 2 games before the Olympic break, and then you've got some time where they can think about it, try to adjust to it, and then you'll have practices coming back. It'll be like a tiny little mini training camp after the Olympics. I think this is the perfect time to do it with the way the break in the schedule works out. Absolutely. Now is the time.
Let's talk about that Olympic break. Obviously, Team USA, we're going to see Clayton Keller in what is a lot of us felt like kind of an overdue chance to represent Team USA, left out of 4 nations last year. And when you see the form he's in right now, are you optimistic that this is going to be an excellent Olympic tournament for him?
You know what? He loves the international stage. I mean, he just steps up. Look at him last year at the World Championship as the captain of Team USA, led him to that title, which was fantastic. I do think he's a big-time player. I think when the lights are brightest, he's at his best. And I'm excited to see what he's going to do. I absolutely think it's going to be turned up for him. And, of course, we're all going to be pumped for him and the other guys that are going to their respective Olympic teams as well. But I like this. And you know what? This bodes well for when they get into a playoff run with Keller at the helm. And this is exactly what this is a training ground and a preparation for. I think he is going to be a big-time performer. And that's why I am excited to watch his Olympic tournament, because I think he's going to be one of the names that there are people who still don't know who he is. 90-point season last year. People still don't know who he is. I think this could be a bit of a coming out party for him.
As we talk about, not necessarily Olympics, but the way this whole season is going, we've beaten to death the point that you're in the best division in hockey right now. 3 of the top teams in the NHL are right above you in your own division. And we know that this is, still a rebuild, although expectations have elevated for the Utah Mammoth. When we're looking at the grand landscape of this NHL season, is it Colorado's cup to lose at this point? Do we have enough of a sample size that you're confident in saying that? Is there a team in the East that you think could unseat the Avalanche as we get down toward playoff time? What are we looking at as we handicap the league as a whole?
Well, first of all, I want to retire the phrase we're in a rebuild. We aren't anymore. At the beginning of the year, this is playoffs or bust for the Utah Mammoth, and that's where it is going forward. So we're out of the rebuild now. Let's stop. That's 5 years of that. And that's a message to the fans, really, for me. And I know the front office is going to say what they're going to say, but it's time. Let's go forward. So that said, Colorado is great. They're deep. They are a difficult team to beat. They have a lot of good things going for them. I know they've cooled off a bit here lately. I like Colorado. I love the way Dallas is built. They are also a very deep team that really adheres to their system. They play really good hockey, and I actually like their goaltending a little bit better than Colorado's goaltending. Over in the East, Tampa Bay is crazy good right now. The Lightning look amazing. They look like the Lightning that won the Stanley Cup a couple of years ago, which should scare everyone else. That team is just, they're putting it together at the right time. But the other team that I think folks might be sleeping on a little bit right now, watch out for the Carolina Hurricanes. They're riding a young goaltender who is just feeling it right now. I don't know if he's going to run out of gas eventually or not. I feel like that's almost the only thing that could derail them. But Rod Brind'Amour has them, and you talk about another team that plays its system to a T. Carolina is patient, it's physical, they wear you down, they wait for you to make a mistake, and then they pounce on it. And that is a very frustrating formula in a playoff series. I think the Carolina Hurricanes are another team to watch out for.
As far as the Western Conference wild card and playoff race goes, last year toward the end of the season, right, we're looking at it, we're counting points, we're seeing how many games are left, and it's like, all right, yes, we know who you're chasing right now above the Mammoth. They're obviously, the 3 teams in division, Colorado, Minnesota, Dallas. You got Vegas and Edmonton. You've got Seattle and Anaheim and LA that are all within that striking distance. But then right behind you, you've got Sharks, Predators. When you look at the teams that could be poised to make a St. Louis Blues from last year type run that are right now trailing the Mammoth or in that same neighborhood as the Mammoth, is there anyone out there that you're like, that's a lurking giant or at least a lurking problem?
Well, man, we really could say that about a lot of teams because of how bunched up it is right now for the wild card. So as of today, Utah's kind of fallen back out. Anaheim and Los Angeles have gotten in front of them. And I can make a million cases for why Anaheim will fall out, LA will get stronger, San Jose should fall out, Winnipeg will get stronger. But that's kind of the crazy thing is between the injuries and really the thing we don't know is this year's Olympic break, that pack that is those really 6 or 7 teams, and I include even Seattle in that one, and Edmonton and Vegas aren't that far out in front in the Pacific. Anything could happen, but what the deal is these teams are all playing one another every single night, and no one really is gaining any ground. And this is where, if you're Utah, it is so important to not turn anything into a 3-point game, meaning don't go past regulation and give the other teams a point, because San Jose believes in themselves right now. That's what makes them dangerous. I don't know if Nashville's going to keep it up or not. I feel like Winnipeg is better than they've shown, but they better hurry. But LA is good. The Ducks are good. The Kraken are good. And I should say good enough. And the Mammoth are good enough that they need to continue to pick up these points where they can. What you hope is that in the Pacific, 1 or 2 of Seattle, Anaheim, LA, San Jose just starts to hammer on those other teams and beat them down the standings for you. Because right now, the parity in the Pacific actually hurt the Mammoth's chance for a wild card position. So you have to hope that the Pacific, somebody, I don't care who it is, but somebody starts to separate themselves out and start to put away games and create a gap.
Need to see those Mammoth get a clean couple points tonight against a very vulnerable Canucks team. That is 7:30 puck drop on ESPN Plus, and obviously Tom Callahan and company will be leading you into it, talking about it tomorrow, talking about it the next day. Tom, always appreciate your time and your insight. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for having me on, and yeah, big 2 points tonight. Fingers crossed.
If you're not already following, it's Callahan on Air on Twitter. Tom Callahan, Utah Mammoth insider and host of the Locked On Mammoth podcast. Very, very dialed in on all things NHL, as you could tell by that conversation. Look, I know it's low-hanging fruit, and it's just an old adage, but you've got to beat the teams that you're supposed to beat. That's one characteristic of good teams. They don't make a big fuss out of smashing the teams at the bottom of the league, bottom of the conference, bottom of the division. You just go out, you take care of business. You got to be professional in those cases just as much as you do when you're trying to rise to the occasion to take on a couple of the better teams. Minnesota and Colorado coming in, like I said, end of February. Those are going to be tough games. You got the Detroit Red Wings. That's a very, very winnable game. That's coming up in just a couple of days. So this should be a 4-point week. And if you don't have that happen, you've probably wasted some opportunities in a very, very tight Western Conference wild card race. All right, big basketball games over the weekend. Running Utes in action, women's basketball in action, and obviously a huge nationally featured Big 12 contest with BYU as well. We'll get to all of that next on the Sean O'Connell Show. It's ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. college hoops to discuss here on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Rough one over the weekend for the running Utes, for the Lady Utes. 65-77 for Gavin Peterson's squad fell to BYU on the road, their first loss on the road so far this year. And we had Coach Pete on Friday, and we were talking about, you know, the best version of this Utah basketball team, Utah women's basketball team, will see a third scoring option emerge. Guys, I'm not giving you the secret to civilization here, but it didn't happen against BYU. Kyra Evans did her level best by adding 11, but Lonnie White with 20 points, Maddie Wilkie with 18 points. You didn't get much offensively out of Reese Ross or Brooke Walker. L.A. Sneed came off the bench in this one, was only good for 6 points. So you just didn't have enough in terms of the scoring, and as all of you know, that's what you need in order to win basketball games. Credit to BYU, who found themselves with 4 players in double digits. So, rough one on the road for Utah women's basketball as tournament time is right around the corner. In the men's game, these were played on the same day. The women were over on our sister station, 92.5 The Beat. You were listening to ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM for Running Utes basketball, and we talked about how this was a big opportunity against Oklahoma State, a very beatable Oklahoma State team, for Alex Jensen and his crew to get another conference win as you're trying to do this rebuild, and it's going to take time, and we know this. The fan base showed up. It was a decently attended game at the Huntsman Center, and again, unfortunately, just not enough in the tank. 81-69. Utah falls to 1-7 in Big 12 play, and the growing pains continue, but you are growing. You had another good game out of Terrence Brown. You had a solid game out of Don McHenry. Would have liked to see him be a little bit more efficient from the three-point line. Keanu Dawes with 12 points. Seydu had 10. Not much out of your bench, and there was not a lot of. They played 3 guys. This was it was an 8-person game for Utah basketball. So short bench for Alex Jensen against Oklahoma State, and unfortunately not able to get that done. Up next for Utah men's basketball will be Arizona State. That's coming on Wednesday. This is another team that is struggling in Big 12 play. They have 2 conference wins right now. There are team chemistry problems. You have a lunatic coach down there at Arizona State. This is a winnable game at the Huntsman. Hopefully Alex Jensen and crew can get this thing together. The more relevant game from a national standpoint took place with BYU on the road against Kansas. This is, of course, BYU coming off their loss to number 1 Arizona, 86-83. They made that a heck of a game. Now, here, I don't want to dunk on anybody. I'm not trying to have any kind of satisfied, self-satisfied, smarmy tone to this, but one of the ultimate frustrations of the modern era of college sports especially that you're going to find people running into, and you already see in certain spots, is when there's a massive commitment toward a certain end. Often that commitment is financial, and it does not bear the fruit that people expect it to bear. You're going to see people starting to question the system, question the commitment, question the issues. BYU is probably not there yet. I shouldn't say probably. They're definitely not there yet. But the last time A.J. DeBonsa had a really, really good game against a top-flight opponent was in the preseason against UConn. Now, I have to be fair to AJ and tell you that, like, what means a really, really good game for A.J. DeBonsa is a lot different than how it looks for a really, really good game for anyone playing for the Running Utes right now, or most people in the country for that matter. The bar is elevated when it comes to expectations for a guy who's projected to be a top 2, top 3 pick of the upcoming NBA lottery. But A.J. DeBonsa against Arizona, we already talked about this game enough. A.J. DeBonsa was 1 for 8 from 3 in that game. He was 6 of 24 from the field in that game. Now, he got to the free throw line a lot. He still scored 24 points in that game, but it was not the outing that you probably expect from a player who's on whatever it is, $7.5 million or whatever it is we decide he's actually making. That's against Arizona. That's the number 1 team in the country. They're going to make a lot of people look bad. They're going to make a lot of people look like they're not really equipped the way that they need to be to win tournament games. Fast forward to this weekend, number 13 BYU, number 14 Kansas, another big-time matchup where you're facing a team with another lottery-type player or players, right? You're facing teams with NBA guys on that side as well. 90-82, so this one not even as close as BYU's game against number 1 Arizona. Of course, this was played at Allen Fieldhouse instead of at the Marriott Center, so that makes a big difference. And again, A.J. DeBonsa, 17 points in this one. He shot 50% from the field, 50% from 3. He got 3 of 4 at the stripe. And Richie Saunders was the guy who took over the scoring load for BYU. Rob Wright was the second leading scorer there. You didn't get anything out of the bench, which is a problem for everyone. And we talked with Jonathan Tavernari about this last week, or I guess it's 2 weeks ago now, about how, once you get past that kind of big 3, big 4 for BYU, it's starting to get thin. And again, why does it matter? Well, this is a conference opponent. This is your rival. This is a team that's a lot further along in their development than where Utah basketball is at right now. And this is one of the national storylines, headlines in college basketball was the roster that this BYU team was able to put together, and the fact that the number 1 overall recruit was now coming and he was going to do his thing, and you get 6 months of A.J. DeBonsa, and you get 6 games of A.J. DeBonsa in the regular season at least, where an opponent is considered a premier opponent, and so far he's like 1 for 4 in taking over and really excelling in those big-time matchups. Again, I realize the bar is unfairly high when we're talking about a true freshman. But them's the breaks, right? Are we at a point now where it's safe to say, or it's appropriate to ask is probably a better way to approach this, is it appropriate to ask now whether or not A.J. DeBonsa is having some struggles in big-time games? He will smash and demolish and destroy everyone who is beneath him in college basketball. We've seen that. And that is sometimes a characteristic of hyper-athletic, front-runner type players. But when he's facing NBA competition, and not even the guy that's directly opposite him and guarding him, is it time to start questioning whether or not A.J. DeBonsa is ready for that as we get closer to tournament time? Because James, you know this as well as I do. You don't dump that kind of commitment and money into what these are all rentals. AJ's a rental. Rob Wright is a rental. You don't spend whatever $10 million between the two of them, hoping that you get to the NCAA tournament and you're out in the first weekend. Is it fair to start questioning the sustainability of what A.J. DeBonsa is against elite competition or something like elite competition?
I think it's fair to question that at the college level. Last year, Cooper Flagg was, no doubt about it, number 1 overall pick, right? And he's having a rookie of the year, putting up historic numbers for a rookie in the NBA right now. He just broke the single game record for a teenager in NBA history, which is nuts to think that he's not even 20 yet. But he also had his moments in clutch time last year, including how they lost in the Final Four to Houston, where it's like, where'd Cooper Flagg go? And yet he's translating, at least in an individual standpoint, really well in his first year in the NBA. So I think it's...
you're right. It's a well-made point. You don't even have to go to Cooper Flagg. Like Yegor Demon, A.J. DeBonsa is a better college player than Yegor Demon was last year. He's more impressive. He's more like an obvious good buy than like good, money well spent.
Yeah, by
Obvious.
BUY.
BUY for AJ. It's like, yeah, dude, he's one of the top players in the country. It's a lot more obvious with him than it was when Yegor Denman was wearing a BYU jersey last year.
Absolutely.
Yegor's coming along quite nicely in Brooklyn.
Yeah, he's
right now.
He's doing really well, especially recently in recent weeks in Brooklyn. So yeah, it's a different. I guess what I'm getting at is it's different. It's almost a completely different game, college basketball to NBA basketball, and we talked about the amount of we touched on part of the reason why the ISO play in the NBA so isolation heavy. It's obviously way less zone played in the NBA than in college, so that favors guys like AJ Devonta and how athletic he is. That the NBA game favors him more than the college game does. So that's a reason, but also I just think I think it's too early to say, and it would be unfair to say, because he's relatively struggling against tougher competition at the college level as a freshman, that means we can question how much he's going to work out in the NBA. I think we definitely have to see.
Well, for me that's
what
not
happens.
For me that's not the question.
Yeah,
this is because like a guy who's built like that, who has this level of skill already, even if you have to wait till his second or third year in the NBA, it's gonna come through.
Yeah,
like I'm convinced. However, BYU does not have time to be patient.
Yeah. BYU, you certainly need to start questioning.
That's really all I care about here, because BYU brought this guy in, they backed up a truckload of money for him, and they set this precedent, like, we want to be in the market for the top players in the country, and the way that you stay in that conversation is certainly with the NIL stuff, but it's also that guy has to win you the games, has to win you the big games. You have to be, because when you are an AJ Devonta and you have all these options, right? Part of that option is, well, I want to go to the team that's going to get to the Final Four. I want to go play for the team that's going to be in the Elite Eight at least. And BYU hasn't been there recently, and they expect AJ to take them there. And part of the return on investment of a guy like that is that you elevate here. Now, it may very well happen. And he's the type of player that could just find another gear when we get to tournament time, and maybe Kevin Young will put him in a situation where he's just like, look, dude, I've been protecting you all year. We didn't want to burn you out. We didn't want to wear you out. Now I just need 8 great games from you. Conference tournament, NCAA tournament. I just empty the tank for me, and maybe that carries BYU to where they need to be. But the teams that they're going to be facing at the top of the Big 12 tournament, and the teams they're going to be facing in the NCAA tournament, that type of competition, AJ has looked a little shaky against.
It's definitely a concern for BYU this year, because they've put themselves in the position with the amount of money they've spent on 2 guys, by the way. Just the 2 guys that they spent the most money with, allegedly. AJ Devonta and Rob Wright. That's as you said, about $10 million on 2 guys. That's more than Utah's and maybe one or two other teams' roster combined. What they put, and they did that from 2 of their starters, right? That kind of money you spend, the Sweet 16, your 4th ever Sweet 16 is not good enough. Like, you're getting to the Sweet 16 again, as I put out there just now, that's a benchmark. That's a big thing for any school, but for BYU, hasn't been there very much in their history. That's in a normal year, that's a big deal. This is not a normal year. This is not necessarily Final Four or bust, but it's certainly got to get out of the first weekend. And if you lose in the Sweet 16, especially in blowout fashion like they did last year to Alabama, with this roster, people are going to be really disappointed. The honeymoon period of, hey, look at how much money we have, and look at the kind of players we can attract here, with that money and with our culture, with Kevin Young, as early as next year, if you lose earlier than you expect to in the tournament, even Sweet 16, which again, big deal historically for BYU to get that far, that honeymoon period's going to be over.
I know nothing about Tyron Stokes, who is the number 1 player for next year's, this graduating class of 2026 in high school. I know nothing about this guy. Other than that, he's from Rainier Beach High School in Seattle, Washington. He's 6'7", he's 230 pounds, and he has BYU nowhere near his recruiting profile. You're not getting the top player in the country coming out of high school again next year. You're not. He's going to go to Kansas. He's going to go to Kentucky. He's going to go, I guess he's interested in Oregon, probably because of the obvious reasons there. The number 2 player in the country is already signed with Duke. AJ DeBonsa is this kind of like magical unicorn of circumstance for BYU that you have to capitalize on right now. And so far, I have not yet seen good reason to believe they're going to be able to capitalize on it. I've been wrong about more serious things. So I won't be shocked if all of a sudden he's just like, okay, now I'm ready.
They certainly, and he individually certainly has the talent to be like, okay, I figured this out. I figured out this college basketball level thing. My coach has figured out how to use me. Whatever it is, whatever the things that are holding him back in these kind of games are, for him to, there's certainly a chance there's still time for them to figure that out, and he certainly has the talent to capitalize on that if they're able to figure that out. And BYU could still end up having a Final Four run, like many people thought they might before the season started, but it's not looking that way right now.
They're 1-4 against top 25 teams.
Yeah,
in college hoops. They have Houston coming up, which is, I mean, that's a home game for BYU, but that's a really tough out. Then they're on the road at Arizona. After it's Baylor, Colorado, then on the road at Arizona, and then 3 days later they've got the number 7 Iowa State Cyclones. So you still have, they finished the season with a ranked Texas Tech team. You still have some opportunities, but right now, that's what we have seen so far from BYU, from AJ specifically, and that's, you put a ton of eggs in this basket. So we'll see how it plays out. All right, what are we giving away today, James? We'll do that in some trivia here on Super Bowl week. We have 2 tickets to the Black Crows coming in August to Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater. Crosstalk, powered by Advanced Windows, is next. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700. right, some tickets to give away here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Black Crowes coming 8/13. That's August 13th to the Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater. 877-353-0700. Where do the Utah Mammoth rank in power play goals right now in the NHL? 877-353-0700. Where do they rank in power play goals? We talked about this with Tom Callahan earlier in this hour. They've got the Canucks coming in tonight. They got the Red Wings coming in on Wednesday. Time for some crosstalk. Brought to you by Advanced Window Products. 801-850-9100. $2,500 off 10 windows or more if you tell them that Spence Checketts referred you.
All right. What about you, though?
Then you're going to get 35. No, just kidding.
You'll get the very same deal.
You'll get the exact same deal.
How was your weekend, bud?
It was good. How was yours?
Good. Good to see you. I played golf on Saturday and Sunday.
Congratulations.
And I had to use sunscreen on my face on January 31st and February 1st in Salt Lake. I had to put sunscreen on my face because I was outside playing golf.
Weird.
It's 56 degrees outside today.
Is it really?
Yes, and my family back east are preparing for another stretch of snow and cold.
Oh my goodness.
It's really, really odd, man.
Yeah.
So look, I'm a warm weather guy, so my weekend was lovely, but I feel bad. There was a couple on the golf course that booked a trip to Park City a year ago to ski, and they're like, we can't. They're golfing in Salt Lake because they couldn't ski. So I mean, they're fine. It's first world problem.
That's a couple of people that have just they take the lemons and they make lemonade.
Yeah.
Good for them.
No, for sure. But I think they were a little bit disappointed that they were playing 9 holes at Forestdale in Salt Lake and not skiing at Deer Valley. I wanted to piggyback. You guys did a good job on the conversation you were having about BYU basketball. Now, we should probably start with a caveat of if you're one of the sports talk radio listeners that's like, hey, it's either BYU or Utah. All right, Utah basketball is in a really bad spot. It was a bad loss over the weekend. It was a winnable game. There's both a lack of talent and a lack of execution. No paint defense. They can't rebound. If Terrence and Don don't go for 100 each, which would be a record, they're going to struggle to win games. But the estimate I've heard is that the total spend for BYU basketball's roster this year is between $12 and $13 million, including 5.5, or 1 year of A.J. DeBonsa, which ultimately is 5 months of A.J. DeBonsa. I have no idea what the Utah spend is. I would be stunned if it was even over $1 million.
It's not enough to cover probably Richie Saunders' nut.
Right. And Richie, a 7-figure guy. Rob Wright, and we know this because Rob Wright's college coach, Scott Drew from Baylor, was livid because Rob had signed a 7-figure deal to come back to Baylor. Now, as we know, signing contracts for these players these days doesn't mean a rip. And then the report is BYU came with a close to $3 million offer or whatever. He said, oh, sorry that I signed that. Doesn't mean anything because nobody can enforce this. I'm going to play for BYU. If it's between $12 and $13 million, that probably puts them either second or third in the Big 12. And for my money right now, they're either the 5th or the 6th best team in the conference.
Well, the interesting thing about it for me is that, look, we know where a lot of that investment comes from. We know, and we'll make it clear for the 10 millionth time. I begrudge no one
absolutely
doing
not
what they want with their money. And if I was a billionaire, Weber State would be in the Big 12 and Utah would be a national champion. Okay, it's your prerogative.
What's taking you so long?
Yeah,
Rob?
exactly. I'm just a loser. I haven't earned even $1 billion yet. The A.J. DeBonsa thing, the reason it's so fascinating, and James and I were talking about this, I think he's going to figure it out. Rob Wright will probably go on to be a good NBA player. I think Richie Saunders is going to make a roster. Kebaketa, if he can find an NBA team that's like, we want you to play defense and rebound for us and do nothing else, he could have a career in the NBA. So you maybe have 4 NBA guys on this BYU roster, certainly international talent if they want to go play overseas, a no-brainer. But the timeline is what's so interesting because how many times is BYU basketball going to find this perfect scenario where there's a guy worth spending $5 million plus on, a number 1 player in the country, even a top 10 player in the country coming out of high school or AAU basketball that will consider BYU? It's still a tough place to recruit to, even with all that money. So there's not another AJ DeBonsa growing on the apricot tree down in Provo. While you have him, you have to maximize this, and it doesn't look promising right now that in this tournament that's upcoming, that unless he turns it on and starts doing things that he's not doing right now in games against elite competition, I'm sure whoever spent the money will be like, no, the exposure, the marketing was good enough. You paid that because you want wins. You paid that because you want a Final Four. And I'm not confident that that's the outcome with AJ right now.
Just real quick, I hope you weren't being disparaging towards my favorite primary song, Popcorn Popping on the Apricot Tree.
Why would I be? It's a very catchy tune.
Okay.
I looked out the window and what did I see?
Popcorn popping on the apricot tree, but not necessarily five-star recruits all the time, is what you're saying.
Well
done,
not.
sir. We just preserve the sanctity of that song, please. You're not wrong, and I mean, look, we don't have to get into the whole, like, is Rob Wright an NBA guy? Rob Wright will make money playing basketball for 10 years, whether it's in the NBA or in Europe, and so will Kaba. I don't know that Kaba can play in the league, but he is so freaking athletic. Like, he will make money in Spain or China or somewhere. They have 4 pros on their roster. And the old saying in college basketball is if you want to win a national championship, if you want to go to the Final Four, you have to have 3 to 4 pros. Now, there have been a few exceptions. Duke won a national championship with, like, John Shire, who's now their coach, and the Zubac dude who played in the NBA for a minute. But there's always an outlier to the rule. If you have 3 to 4 pros on your roster, like Rick did almost every year during that run, Andre, Doliak, Britt, Van Horn, Hano, like he always had multiple pros. Utah basketball right now has 0. Not one of those kids, I don't think, will, maybe in like the 3rd Dutch league if Kiana Dawes goes over, but they don't have any. And you watch BYU and you know that there's talent on paper. I'm concerned about their depth, right? Like, ultimately, this is a top-heavy roster because that's where they've spent their money. But the point is, these days, because of the money involved, there are expectations tied to investment, especially when you have donors that are just giving you money. Like this thing with the private equity group for Utah, at least the donors are buying into something that at some point maybe there's a return on investment. For a school like BYU, you are just giving the school money. Are there tax breaks? Sure, but you get it. Your expectation, I would imagine, if you're a BYU donor or a booster, is represent the school the right way, right? But the Kennard Davis kid got arrested, right? So I'm sure there's not a lot of people that are thrilled about that. And in addition, you have to win games in a way that we haven't seen here. BYU basketball has the most tournament appearances without a Final Four in college basketball history. So if they go and win a couple of games in the Big 12 tournament, qualify as like a 4 or a 5 seed in the NCAA, right now they're projected as a 4. Because they have 0 quad 1 wins. They've had 4 opportunities and they're 0-4. So if they qualify as a 4 or 5 and win like 2 games in the NCAA tournament, I think you're going to hear from a lot of BYU fans going, wait a second. You told me this was the best team we've ever had. And they did the same thing as the team with McKelly Wesley. And, you know,
Is that a shot at the representative of the island nation of Guam in international basketball? How dare you?
It's not. I mean, they didn't win state in '97. I'll look up who did. It's not a big deal. But if you if you do the same thing that a team of basketball players who were paid $0 for, there will be questions that are very fair to answer and also fair to ask about their head coach.
Utah fans would relish the opportunity to say BYU is the basketball equivalent of Texas A&M. Mm-hmm. When they spent all that money with Jimbo Fisher. A lot of basketball left to play. Kevin Young is a good coach as far as we could tell. Maybe they'll figure it out. NCAA basketball is a game of runs. Maybe they can go on a legendary one. But it's, to the point you made, 0-4 with the quad 1 wins. And I, fairly or not, I'm looking squarely at A.J. DeBonsa, the most expensive player in college basketball, and I'm saying you are 1 for 5 with good games against ranked teams.
Yeah. And they went to Fog Allen with the eyes of America on them and college game day there. And AJ didn't take a shot for the first 8 minutes. He had 0 field goal attempts for 8 minutes. And when I'm watching these games, what I tried to do is say, if you didn't know anything about any of these players, if you had 0 preconceived notions about these players, what would your takeaway be? And my takeaway for the first 8 minutes is like, where's that kid? Where's 3? What is he doing? Because he wasn't setting screens. He had 1 rebound all game long. He's 6'9" with a 7-foot wingspan. And I do want to be very clear about one thing. I love his upside. I love his talent. I do think, to your point, whether it's year 1 as a rookie, year 2 as a soph, or eventually figures it out and honestly is an NBA All-Star. That's what I believe his skill set is. But so far in these games, there are way too many congrats on 43 against the JV, okay? That's what your game against Utah was. And he has dominated inferior competition, but whether it's Kansas, he had a good second half against UConn. But whether it's Kansas, whether it's Texas Tech, whether it's Arizona, and the teams that you have played so far that will represent your biggest challenges, there are way too many stretches where I'm going, where is he? If you're not scoring, affect the game in other ways, which is what Darren Peterson does, by the way. And that's one of the reasons a lot of people believe Darren is 1, and there's a pretty sizable gap before you get to AJ 2.
Well, the silver lining there is that when AJ DeBonsa ends up being an NBA All-Star, it's in a Utah Jazz uniform because you'll get pick number 3 or whatever instead of pick number 1 in the upcoming lottery.
It would be very nice if this was a serious team about competing, and everybody believes next year they will be. We'll have to wait and see.
Stay tuned for The Drive with Spence Checketts. Thanks for listening to the Sean O'Connell Show. We'll do it again tomorrow on ESPN 700.